Hello, hello, hello. How's it going, everyone? Go back over here to hello, hello, hello. Figured I would go live. Family's up north and out of town, so I am at home studying, I guess you could say. So, actually doing quite a bit with VMware as of lately, as the channel has probably shown for most folks. So yeah, good stuff. The live stream today will be a lot of me rebuilding my VMware lab. So I'll be going through, a lot of the building processes that go into stuff, deploying ESXi, deploying vCenter, setting up a storage area network, getting that all connected, depending on how long it takes, NSX Manager, NSX vManager, NSXT, all that good stuff, get that all squared away. So it'll be similar to what you guys would see in a regular video series, except for all in one shot. And now there's going to be a lot of time periods where stuff will be kind of, there'll be some downtime as we're waiting for stuff to install. So there might be some pauses and mutes and whatnot that I'll throw in there just because, I'm not going to be full of live instruction. So, but with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring over my lab here. I've got another lab that I'm working on for VMware Horizon, which has actually been a lot of fun to play with over the past couple weeks. So that is basically what we're going to be doing today and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys learned something. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over to my desktop and I'll go ahead and log into my server. So I just wiped this about 45 minutes ago, so it's completely 100% like there's nothing here, right? The server's completely wiped. So as you can see, there's no virtual machines. We're going to go through and deploy everything. And basically my goal here with building this out is to deploy ESXi, vCenter server, the storage area network, so I can do vMotion and stuff like that, and HA, DRS, all that good stuff that goes along with it. And then there will be obviously adding in NSX Manager, stuff like that. So I'm going to dive right in to what we're going to be diving into. I'm actually going to pull over my so I can keep track of what's going on in the chat. If anybody has any chat that they want to go, let me go ahead and edit the, can I edit the name? I can. Let's see, we'll do RRTC live stream VMware Lab rebuild and something like that. Good stuff. Save that. Perfect. Alright, so that's basically what we're going to go do and get this party started. So first thing we're going to need to do is we're not going to deploy an ESXi server. Well, I will. Matter of fact, I'm going to deploy a couple different things out of the gate right away. There's going to be a VM for doing the domain controller. There's going to be some stuff like that. So I'm going to get started with all this stuff. Create a new virtual machine here. And I'm going to call this guy, since I've got two different hosts that I'm running, I'll do host 1, and this will be ESXi 1. And I'm going to choose other. And we're going to scroll down here to 6.5. And put it on the QNAP, which is my storage appliance. Click next. Now, in order to run a nested environment, you can actually, whoops, one second here. Oh, there it goes. Okay. In order to run a nested environment, you actually have to go in underneath the CPU here. You have to come under here and you have to expose the CPU to the guest operating system. So if you want to be able to run a VM inside of a VM, this is how you would do that. So in case you were wondering how you would pull that off, it's basically what you would do. So just expand CPU, click these. I click clicking all three of these. You don't need to. The only one you really need is the expose the expose hardware assisted virtualization to the guest OS, and you'll be good to go. I'm going to bump this guy up to 4 CPUs, and I will give him 1024, or basically 10 gigs of RAM. The hard disk, I only want to go here and thin provision, take up as little space as I absolutely have to. And I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more network adapters. Because some of my devices will be running in a NSXV and some will be running NSXT, I'll be running 6.7. There's some caveats that will come into play when you're doing this, where you have to, especially when you're doing 6.7, because you have to deploy the NVDS. You can't do a converged VDS. When you do a NVDS, you're going to need at least 2 NICs to associate to the NVDS so that you can do things for redundancy purposes, and then for the other 2 NICs will be on the distributed switch that we're going to be deploying here. So you can deploy a minimum of 1, but I like to do redundancy, and then at least this way here the vCenter server and NSX isn't squawking at you that you don't have redundancy. So I've got 4 here. The hosts themselves are going to be put on a management network, which is right here. I've got the Vmware Lab Trunk, and once I get this guy started to install, I'll kind of walk you through how I've done everything and all that good stuff. Host device for the CD drive, we're going to change this over to be the VMware Visor. We're going to install 6.7 update 1. Once we get some devices deployed and everything's good to go, and we get the environment where we need it to be at inside of vCenter, I'll actually use vSphere Update Manager, or it was replaced with a Lifecycle Manager in 7.0. We'll upgrade the operating system from 6.7 Update 1 to Update 3, so that you'll be able to deploy NSX or NSXT to it. And that pretty much is it for right now. I'm going to go ahead and click on Next and then Finish, and then we'll go through and get this party started. So I'll get this guy started up here real quick, and all that good stuff that goes along with it. This process isn't very time consuming necessarily. It is just kind of tedious rebuilding everything, but I like to consistently do it because I do a lot of from the ground up deployments with the customers that I work with now. So it actually makes it a lot easier to do it this way than it does to try to take it in an already existing environment and try to work with it some more. So with that being said, good stuff there. So while I'm waiting for him to start, I'm going to deploy my admin machine as well. So I'm going to come over here, go create, register another virtual machine. Call this host 1. This will be admin. The guest operating system will be Windows, and we will choose Windows 10 64-bit. Next, we'll put it on the QNAP. And I will give him 8192 for 8 gigs of RAM. I've got 256 gigs available on this host, so I'm not going to be running out of resources anytime soon. I'll thin provision this, but I'll put in here 50 gigs because I'll have to use this VM as a kind of a connection between the lab environment and my home environment, so I can bring in operating systems to it, like upload the deploy vCenter server from this VM, deploy the NSXT and NSXV managers from this VM. It'll be kind of think of it like a jump box or a bastion station that you would use in a production network. I'm going to add a second network adapter. One network adapter is going to be in the VM network, and then the other one is going to be in the VMware Lab Trunk. And then on the host device, I will come over here and choose Windows 10 Enterprise Eval 64-bit. Select that, and that's pretty much all I need to worry about there. I'm going to click on Next and then Finish. And then over here in the 6.7 installer, I'm going to go ahead and hit the Enter key and then F11 to start the install process. It's not terribly difficult to get it to work. So I just looked for a storage place to install the operating system. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the 40 gig drive that I set up with it, hit the Enter key, and then set the password. You can choose whatever you would like. and then enter. And then we're going to go ahead and F11 install. The nice thing about this install is it's happening on bare metal. So I go through and my install is happening on an actual ESXi host. So it goes a little bit quicker than it normally would if it was in a nested environment. So I'm going to go ahead and power on the Windows 10 box as well. Bring him to the forefront. I'm going to click inside of there, hit the enter key, and then we're going to go ahead and deploy Windows 10. Eventually I will join this guy to be he will be part of the domain and get that squared away. So we'll go through and click next our way through the install process here. This is a lot of the stuff that I will still show in a video series because the fact, well, it's important to know how to go through the process in setting it up. Some people like to just show the VMware specific pieces to it. I like to show the entire part because, well, I got to go through it anyway. I might as well show you guys how to do it. So go ahead and work our way through that. If you've never deployed Windows, here you go. It's not that difficult to do. You just have to kind of go through the pieces to get it there. So we're kind of at a standstill. You notice my mouse is kind of locked in here and it's kind of sluggish. If you press Control-Alt, that actually breaks out of it. And I can come back over here to this guy. I'm going to wait for this ESXi host to finish installing, and then I will go ahead and get him squared away where he needs to be. So I'm actually going to be using, like I said, I'm using the admin PC as a bastion station or a jump box between the home network and the lab network. Go ahead and enter to reboot that guy. And we're going to go ahead and let him reboot. So let me go take you to the back side, behind the scenes of the networking piece of this. So from a virtual switches perspective, I have two virtual switches. One virtual switch has two uplinks to it that connect me to the physical network that I'm connected to. So I have a 3750X switch that connects all of my ESXi hosts together. I'm only running two physical servers right now. That's how it's been. I just noticed my camera was way high. Turn that down just a touch. So I had a bunch running a while ago, and I decided it really wasn't worth having that many servers running. Plus, it was costing quite a bit for the power bill, so I decided to back off. I run two servers now. Both of them physically wire into a 3750 Cisco switch, all gigabit interfaces. And the vSwitch 0 is what has two uplinks on it, as you can see, uplink 1 and uplink 2. And they're both set at gigabit. And then I have another vSwitch, which this vSwitch has no uplinks associated to it. So consider it a closed loop network. And what I did is on here, I created a port group called Vmware Lab Trunk, which allows me to tag all of my communication between my devices as traffic is going back and forth. So it allows me to basically go through, as you can see, I've got host 1 ESXi 1. You can see that there's a bunch of MAC addresses already associated to it. You can see that the host 1 admin only has one NIC right now. So we'll get that squared away at a later point in time, but right now host 1 admin has one NIC in the port group of VMware Lab Trunk, where if we click on this port group right here for VM network, we have host 1 admin has the other NIC inside of the VM network, so he's able to get outside of the network. So I'm able to eventually set up remote desktop on this host 1 admin PC and be able to RDP into it, and then I'll be able to manage my virtual environment from this box here, and he'll basically have a closed loop network with the rest of the VMware Lab Trunk network. Now the VMware Lab Trunk network, which is this guy right here, I basically set up a trunk link. So think of it no different than if you were to have a bunch of connections going from your ESXi servers to your physical network. I don't really care what you're running in your network, whether it's Juniper, Cisco, Arista, pick whatever flavors fit your bill. You wire that all up. You set up all your connections between your switches and your servers as trunks, and you tag whatever needs to get tagged. It's basically what's happening here. I use VLAN 1 for management, and then I'm able to be specific with a bunch of other connections as I go along. So I'll pick a VLAN ID for my storage, for vMotion, for fault tolerance, for vSAN, so on and so forth. Gives me a lot of flexibility. So that's basically what I do here. In the VMware Lab Trunk, the vSwitch that is connected to right here, there's no physical adapters, so it's a closed loop system. So I can run whatever I want inside this environment, and as long as I've turned off at the vSwitch level enable promiscuous mode, so that VMs are able to talk to each other back and forth. And if I was to look at VMware Lab, you can see here in the allow promiscuous mode, I've got it selected as yes, so that I can allow VMs to communicate with each other inside of the switch, which is what I really want them to be able to do. I need my storage to be able to talk to my hosts, and my vCenter server to be able to talk to my hosts and things like that. So going back over here to my host 1 admin, we're almost done doing the install. Remember, the beauty of this is you're dealing with physical hardware, so you're going to get physical hardware doing the work. What's up, Medi? How you doing, man? I am doing well. Can't complain. So, good stuff. So, we'll wait for this to finish up its thing. Let me go ahead and jump back over here to my ESXi host. And we can see that we're trying to pull in a DHCP address. So I'm going to F2 to log in. Whoops. I forgot that I have a hotkey set up for this. Let me jump back over here. I'll get out of the way for the moment. And we'll go ahead and type this in real quick. I'll go ahead and change the IP address on this guy. So you can use whatever you want for IP addressing. It's up to you. I typically like to use the 10.0.0.11 address and then work my way up, and I'll pick whatever I want. I start at 1 for host 1, 12 for host 2, 13 for host 3, etc. It makes it easier just for the connectivity purposes. And then we're going to come down here and 10.0.0.1 for my gateway. My DNS server I also put on VLAN 1, and this is going to be 10.0.0.254, and this guy will be dc1-host1.nsx.local, and get that squared away. So in other words, what we're going to go do is we're going to deploy a domain controller, and the domain controller will have the domain of, you guessed it, nsx.local. So that's that. So now that he's squared away, I won't be able to connect to him because he's on a closed loop network. When the admin PC comes online, let me go ahead and close this guy out. When the admin PC comes back online, we'll be able to go through and install VMware tools on it, reboot it. So there's a number of little steps that we have to go through to make happen. We're not going to be able to set up a domain or to join him to a domain right away because we have to deploy that next. So I wanted to at least get a few things out of the way first when it comes to getting this deployed. But one of the things we're going to be also doing is we're going to be deploying a couple of CSR 1000 Vs inside of ESXi. And the CSR 1000 Vs will be used as routers, as the default gateways for a variety of different things. They will allow for on the NSXV side of the house, we're going to have DLRs, distributed logical routers, that we're going to install on our ESXi host to do interlogical switch routing or inter VLAN routing. Those DLRs are going to connect to edge services gateways. Those ESGs will then connect northbound via distributed port groups to the CSR 1000 Vs. On the NSXT side, we're going to deploy tier 1 gateways to our host to do inter-segment routing. Not segment routing that you would see on the service provider side of the house or in certain data center deployments. I'm talking segments inside of NSXT, which is another term for a logical switch. We're going to then connect our tier 1 gateway to a tier 0 gateway, and the tier 0 gateway will use a VLAN back segment to connect upstream to our CSR 1000 Vs via BGP. Now, NSX 3.1 actually supports OSPF. So I will be at some point hopefully in the near future, be converting from 3.0 to 3.1. That's one thing I do want to do, is I want to do a 3.0 to 3.1 upgrade and go through all of that. So that'll be cool to get that squared away. But this takes a little bit of time to get through. As you can see, if I didn't go live tonight, what I would pretty much be doing is I'd be sitting here watching this happen while I'm either watching YouTube or reading or watching a video on trying to get my VDI environment squared away. I'm getting better with VDI. There's some things that aren't working. I haven't figured out exactly why they're not working, but specifically manual desktop deployments, I'm not sure exactly why it's failing to work. But then again, that's a troubleshooting scenario that I will walk myself through and figure that out. But linked clones, they're working. Instant clones don't work with the licensing that I have, so I won't be able to demonstrate or play with instant clones. I'll have to go out to the VMware hands-on labs to do that. But I'm hoping to pass the DTM exam here in the next couple weeks or so, because my goal right now is I don't think it'll happen in 2021, but I know my goal before Labor Day, which is in early September, was to be a triple VCP. So data center virtualization, got that. Just passed NSX a couple weeks ago, and then I'm going to be trying to knock out the desktop mobility VCP as well here in another few weeks is my goal. And I still have a lot of reading and learning to do on it, but it's a lot of cool things. Learn how this stuff works. Hardcore on the VMware side of the house right now, if you hadn't noticed. Not a lot of Cisco. Not that I don't like Cisco anymore. Just there were other things that I decided to go and play with. So good luck on the exam. Appreciate that, man. Not derail topic, but curious if you've ever deployed zero tier. I've never heard of zero tier. Could you give me some insight as to what that is? I've never heard of that before. Thanks for stopping by the way. It's always good to catch up with some folks. But once this is done, let's see what the utilization is of the host. How high we're not in bad shape at all. We're actually doing pretty good. Even the CPU of the server is not bad. Well, I'm in the way. See, server utilization of the CPU is actually pretty low. So I'll go ahead and I'll kick off the install of my domain controller. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new virtual machine. And this one will be called host1-DC. The operating system will be Windows. The version we're going to deploy is going to be Server 2016. Right there. Click next. Put this on QNAP as well. And phone just buzzed. Let's see, is it anything important? Doesn't appear as though it is. Nope. No one bothering me. So I'm going to go ahead and bump this guy to 8192. I don't really need 8 gigs of RAM, but why not when you can, right? Bump this to be thin provisioned. I'm going to go and bump this guy to be 50 gigs of hard drive space, but thin provisioned. Thanks for the info on the Cisco C220M3s. Got it with 128 and no drives. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, there's that's not this server, but one of the server that I'm running my DTM environment on is basically got that set up and it works great. Can't complain. What's up, Bill? Best of luck in your exam. My second V. Nice. Good luck, Bill. Yeah, DCV was probably of the two that I've taken, I would say it's more difficult than the NSX exam. At least I thought so. But only because of the fact that there's more topics to cover. So it just It was just more in that case, but it's also the foundation of all the VMware products too. So, but good luck to you on the data center. If you need any help, let me know. I can see if I can't point you in the right direction on anything. So, this network adapter here will also be in Vmware Lab Trunk, and then the host device, data store, and I'll put Windows Server 2016 Data Center Eval, just like that. Select that, and I think that's everything. It looks good. I'm going to click on Next and then Finish. And then we're going to go ahead and power him on. I've noticed that Windows 10 and Server 2016, if you don't click inside of here, it won't automatically launch, which is kind of stupid, but hey, whatever. Certainly, it is a minimal configuration agent mesh VPN. They're open source and have paid tiers. They brand as global area networking. Worth looking up, especially Area 51. Oh my goodness. I like that. Area 51. Cool. Alright, yeah, I've never heard of Zero Tier. Yeah, I'll look into that and see what they're all about. So we're going to go ahead and just run through this install process of Server 2016. Get this bad boy started. And then the one drawback to deploying Windows boxes, especially when you're the first time you're going through it, is changing the host name to what you want it to show up in, installing VMware tools. There's a bunch of reboots and stuff like that. We're going to choose standard evaluation desktop experience because I am not that great with the CLI and server core. So we're going to go click on Next, and then we will accept the license terms, Next, Custom, and then in Next. Like I said, Windows is not difficult to kick off and install on inside of ESXi. You just have to go through a few steps. Host 1 admin. All right, we're in the final stages of this deployment here, and so my goal is once I get this PC up and running, we go through a couple of its paces. We'll get logged in, get an IP address on it, and then we're going to go through and do a VMware Tools update. We'll get that done. And actually, what's funny is the exam that Bill's going after is exactly what I'm going to be building this evening for the next couple of hours. So, Bill, if you want to hang out, if you're still in the chat or still on the stream, I'm actually going to be building exactly what it is you're going to be studying on. So you might get a free 3-hour tutorial on how to deploy a full data center with NSX. Maybe that. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, but you never know. Some people like to get free training. I'm all about free training, right? That's why I like YouTube. It's good stuff. So we will 29%. Yeah, they cook right through, and then we still have our host here is in good shape. So we are where we need to be. The only thing I need to do now is I need to pick an IP address for my management. I'll be here as long as the wife lets me. I like that answer, man. I like that answer. Good stuff. So we're going to pick an IP address that's not on the home network. So as you can see, I've got a couple of IP addresses that I was pinging for in order to get my DTM environment online. So I'm going to go ahead and just ping 10.255.1.71. Let's see if 71 responds. There is another way to do it, yes. There is always the option of doing a ping thing, but I just grab an IP address. And nothing's coming back, so that tells me that I'm in good shape there. Give it one more just to make sure. Okay, cool. So that's that. So we're going to go ahead and give my admin PC that. So while we're waiting for all this stuff to finish up its install, let me jump back over here to my other environment. This is my... Oh, it's at the RDP, sorry. It's an RDP connection. Here we go. So let's see where we're at with our connections here. This is Horizon 7 I've got working here. Let's see where we're at. Everything looks like it seems to be going all right. Let's see here. The linked boxes are up. Okay, we have sessions. Let's refresh this. Problem vCenter servers. So I'm still learning Horizon 7. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and try logging in. Let me go ahead and close. Guess I want to log off. And then we'll log back in real quick. Authenticating. Let's see what we have is, okay, Win 10 linked. Okay, this desktop is going to pop up. That's cool. Alright, awesome. So I've connected to this guy, which is exactly what I want to have. So I know that he's working. So this would be using Horizon 7 to deploy virtual desktops. So that was my next big thing after I passed the NSX exam. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect from him. Yep, that's fine. And now Win 10 manual. I've had some problems with the manual deployments. Yeah, see, for some reason I'm having a hard time with those, and I don't know why. So I'm not going to waste too much time on that, even though that they're more dedicated. But there's some other stuff that I'm also working my way through with just-in-time management. And then there's also going through and learning, what was the other thing? Application pools and stuff like that to deploy specific apps to your users who log in. It's actually pretty cool stuff when you start getting into it. But alright, cool. Our admin PC is ready to square it away. So let's go ahead and bring him back over so you guys can see this. We're going to click on yes to start this bad boy up with. And then let's see where we're at here with this one. This one's halfway there as well. I'm going to go ahead and close the ESXi1 out in the back. Yes, US keyboard. We're going to skip a second keyboard layout. I don't speak another language, nor do I type in one. 15 concurrent users. Wow. I feel special. Thanks everybody for stopping by and hanging out. And this is the hurry up and wait part. If I could tell Microsoft to do one thing, it would be to make this part right here less time consuming. But, you know, what do you do? Like, how much effort do you really need to put into the boot up process? I don't know, that's just me though. Alright, so we're gonna join a domain instead. And I'm gonna call this guy admin. Password. You can use whatever you want. Security question, I just use Q. Oop. W and then E. Something simple. You got yourself an IBM System X. Wow, okay. Good deal. Good to catch you on a live session. Yep, you as well, Gurkharan. Pascal. 768 gigs of RAM. Holy cow, that thing's packed. That's a beast of a system, man. Beast of a system. Wow, 72 cores? Who'd you rob? That's where'd you get that? Did you get that from some company or was that an eBay buy? That thing's a beast. You could run DNA Center on that thing. Could I borrow it? Kidding. I wouldn't be able to do anything with the DNA Center. Passed my Cisco SD-WAN by watching your SD-WAN series. Hopefully pass my NSX exam next month again by watching. Hey man, good for you. Nice work. Glad it helped you out. Is it 220 volt? Yeah, that's a good question. Is your server, because you're running that much CPU and that much RAM, 110 I don't think would do it. I've got 256, and my buddy who's a he's an electrician, says I can't go any higher on the utilization than I've already got, or I'll have to bump up to a second circuit. For sure, I usually use a lurker. Oh, I'm usually a lurker. Okay. So for a couple years, help me figure out our service provider routing core. Wow. Just became a 120 volts. Okay. 900 watts. That's actually not terrible for that size server. It would just be running two different connections in. Is where you could pull that off. You just wouldn't be able to plug in the same wall outlet. You'd have to run two different circuits in. That's what I did for one of the servers that I for a customer that I used to do some work for. That's what we did. I ran one circuit, plugged it in, ran it to one power supply, ran off another circuit to another power supply. It was able to boot up, but it wasn't sustainable in the house. I basically just had it plugged in like that long enough to get it bootstrapped and ready to go, and then I shipped it to the data center. What can I do to make it sweat? Not much, man. I mean, I wish I had that much. Well, actually, you know what? I really don't need that much horsepower. As long as I'm smart about it, you can pull off a lot. I mean, you have a beast of a system. Seriously, you have a lot of compute. Well, if that's all you're running on that thing, man, you're not really putting that thing to good use. You need to be like doing some like Bitcoin on that bad boy with that many cores. You need to be Bitcoining the crap out of that thing. What's up, Just One? Got Just One in the house. Hopefully everybody's doing all right. Your prod isn't even that big. I know, right? A couple of my customers don't even have servers that bad. Oh, awesome, man. I'm glad you're able to show up and hang out. Good stuff. Where'd my thingy go? There we are. Appreciate that, man. Hola from Mexico. Hola back. Oh, hey, you know what? Appreciate that. You guys are far too kind. Far too kind. I'm just a dude that likes to talk about tech. I'm no one special. I'm just fortunate that I have a decent following. You guys are the guys that make this channel actually work. I just put out content because I'm just a geek that likes to mess around with stuff and record myself playing with it. I suck at playing video games, and well, I'm not that great of a guitar player, so gotta do something else, right? Alright, so our admin PC is squared away now. He's booted up, ready to go. Let me go ahead and see what my IP address is that he got. Alright, let's go to let's see here. Network and Sharing Center. Wake up, Susie. There we go, yeah. Give me lots of likes, folks. I've got 7 so far since the stream started 40 minutes ago, so appreciate that. What IP address? I got 93, so I'm going to change this to be 71. And this thing is running super slow. We're going after some design and architectural paths. Yeah, actually, responding to Just One. I do, actually. So right now, heavy focus on VMware, obviously. And a lot on the design of VMware, NSX, desktop mobility, that type of stuff. So I will definitely be. I don't know when. I'm not sure if it'll happen this year. right now, because I have a lot of VMware stuff that I'm focusing on with work, which is taking up most of my time. But my goal sometime maybe early 2022 is a rough estimate, Q1 probably. I want to start going after the CCDE. So that's something I've always wanted to do. And there's a lot of people out online that I'm cool with and I'm friends with that are already DEs. So probably go and do DE, and well, obviously knock out the design professional first, and then go through and start knocking out the CCDE, because it's so design agnostic. It just makes sense for the line of work that I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of architecture, so definitely that would be one of the big ones. But I do also have a longer term goal of becoming a triple VCIX. So in a data center, NSX, and then in desktop, I want to be pretty solid in VMware as well. So a friend of mine's trying to push me to become a VCDX, and I don't think I have that energy in me. But you never know. Work pays for a lot of stuff, so I don't have to really worry about it too much. Good question. What resources have you been turned on to for the CCD? Right now, the only thing that if my boss came to me tomorrow and said, "Hey Rob, I really want you to knock out a design exam," I would start reading the CCDE study guide that, and I'm gonna butcher the guy's name, Marwan, I think is his first name. I can't remember the guy's last name. But he works a lot with a good friend of mine, Zig Zigga. But Zig's also a CCDE. And then I would also reach out to Ergon. And because those are the guys that are like, and then Jeremy Philibin. Those are if I was serious about CCD, thank you, Marwan Al-Shawi, yep. I would reach out to those folks, because they're like top dogs when it comes to CCDE. If you want to pass, you hook into those guys. And if I was serious about doing it, right now, the commitment's not. I don't have the time for the commitment. That's really the bottom line. But I definitely plan on doing it at some point in the future. But as all of you here are well aware of time commitments in the job, you all know where I'm coming from when it comes to that. But the other question that was given to me a couple weeks ago was, do I ever plan on knocking out another CCIE? And the answer to that is no. I have no interest in. If I was able to knock out all of my VMware stuff, knock out AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and then circle back and do CCDE, which would probably be the flow that I would go in, then I might, as I would probably get bored after a while. But right now, no, there's really no upside to it. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, I don't need a second CCIE to do. I can go learn. If I need to go to learn how to deploy firepower, guess what? I just go learn firepower. If I need to learn how to deploy ICE, I just go learn ICE. So now I'm at that point now where it's learn what I have to do, or learn what I have to know in order to do the job. But beyond that, it's there's really no upside to getting a second CCIE if you don't really have to have one. Some guys like it because it's a challenge. But I really don't see the upside to it. But you never know. I'm young yet. My kids are getting older, so I might. Yeah, I know. Don't yell at me for giving the wrong subnet mask. But and DNS server will put in. Actually, you know what? Leave that alone. So we're going to get a multiple default gateways alert here, but the default gateway for the other network that I have, the Vmware Lab Trunk, it's currently not deployed right now, so I don't have to worry about it. So we have that. So now that I've got that squared away and the networking is there, I'm going to go ahead and actions, and I'm going to go ahead and guest OS and then install VMware tools. That's like one of the first things you should deploy when you're messing around with any type of VM, is just knock out the VMware tools thing, get that done, and then enable remote desktop if you need to, and then you're pretty much squared away at that point. Let's see, what are we waiting on here for this guy? A lot of spinny circle things. Alright, let's go back over here to see what we have. Check on this PC. There's VMware tools. I'm a little impatient sometimes. I want it to go way faster than what it is, as I'm sure most of you can relate to. So how was your CCDE initial course? I have no idea what that would look like or how that would work. Can you provide some details on what you mean by that? Because you genuinely have my interest. Do let us know when we can create a city. Yeah. That's the whole thing about CCDE. It's not one of those things where you can just bury your head in the sand and study for it, and then just go crank it out one day and bam, you're a DE. It's one of those things where you really have to sit on it and talk with other people and hash through different designs. So yeah, 100% agree with you on that one. Alright, so this guy's done being installed. I'm going to go ahead and set this one up. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the domain controller. Domain controller is going to have a 10.0.0.254 address. And let's get VMware tools done. Just simply reading Marwan's book, and then basically started from CCDA. Okay. Okay. Well, you know what? You're on a track, and that's the important part. Because that's basically how CCIE started for me. I talked to an IE and gave me some insight, pointed me kind of in a certain direction, and that's all I did. We just started going down the track. So yeah, just got to take that first step, that's all. Go ahead and... This server's getting a little bit beat up right now because of all this I/O that I'm throwing at it. And it really isn't the server right now. This is going to be storage. I'm beating the storage up pretty good right now. So many things getting installed on it. The IOPS on my storage appliance aren't super high, but I think I've got like this would be just one 4 terabyte drive at 7200 RPM. So I'm not even sure how many IOPS per second that would be, but it gets the job done. Nothing on the phone. Alright, let's see how we're doing on the admin PC. Well, we're back to a hurry up and wait kind of deal. So, but once this happens, we'll reboot the admin PC. He'll come back online. He's got an IP address now set. And then we'll go through the domain controller and get him squared away. Same thing, VMware tools, static IP address, and then we'll go ahead and install the domain controller features, promote it to a DC, set up DNS, that type of stuff. And then at some point in the future, in the next probably 15-20 minutes I'd say, we'll be able to pull in vCenter server onto the admin PC, and then once that's done, we'll also join the admin PC to the domain once the domain controller is online and good to go. We're going to go ahead and reboot this guy, and we'll be good to go there. And then I'll pull in the bits for vCenter Server 6.7 onto the admin PC. We'll deploy vCenter Server and get that squared away. And then once vCenter Server takes a while. Once it's online and working, it's not so bad, but it takes a while to deploy and initially set up. But while that's working, we'll deploy other ESXi hosts and things like that. So you're kind of flip-flopping back and forth between your deployment pieces, but once you're there, it doesn't take too long. ACI is also interesting. Would love to see you making some content on that. You know what? It's funny you say that. So, what was it? I said the same thing a couple months ago. I think or I responded to it in a tech support Thursday. I said basically the same thing. And ironically, when I was interviewing for the job that I have right now, my current director had me go out of town with and work with the guy that literally wrote the book on ACI. Where is that book? I forgot where I put it. Anyway, I met Amar Ahmadi. Super smart dude. He literally wrote the book on ACI. We were out of town. We were working together on a customer deployment where we were deploying ACI. So I learned a lot about fabric discovery, and he was clicking through the GUI. The only drawback to ACI is don't waste your time on the simulator. The simulator's trash. He and I sat down with the simulator one day, and he started walking me through some stuff, and the simulator's trash. It's good for just about one thing, and that's doing the fabric discovery. But once you do fabric discovery and you start setting up the domains and the physical stuff and getting that all squared away, you start doing contracts and EPGs and starting to test traffic between your endpoint groups. It doesn't work right. So if you want to learn ACI, you literally need to go get the hardware for it, and unless you've got a very large bank account and lots of power to throw at it, it's not worth the effort. But that's the one thing that I would love to go learn how to work with too, because I'm all into that software defined side of the house, and that stuff is like let me play with it, but you really can't unless you were to you might be able to play with it a little bit in dcloud, but really there's not a lot on that side of the house that you can really mess with. So it's kind of sucks, but I guess it is what it is. I'm hoping that they come out with a viral version of it or a CML version of it that you can play with, But and it really doesn't help to read the book is good. I've read quite a bit of the book, and Amar does a good job, in my opinion, of giving you screenshots and helping you walk through the logic. But to be honest with you, any of you that are like me where you need the clickety-click stuff, where you're actually clicking through whatever you're doing and taking notes as you're doing stuff, and you naturally learn the path, nothing really beats that. What do you think of hosting all this big tech stuff in AWS, using it as a lab? I mean, I don't even know if we could pull that off, to be honest with you. I don't know. That's a really good question. I've never really given it a whole lot of thought. I thought ACI's main interface is API programmability. I hear the GUI is pretty stacked and hard to follow. It can be. I don't have much experience at all, if any, with the API side of the house. I know there's API integration for some stuff, but I'm definitely not the person to comment on a whole lot of what ACI can and can't do. The GUI, to me, the ACI GUI, and I know that I'm, again, not one person that's extremely steeped in experience with it. It didn't seem too difficult. The API, or the GUI wasn't, too gnarly. The part that, to me, seemed a little bit difficult to follow was the architecture and the trying to build the logical workflows. But at the end of the day, to me, it's built the way that it needs to be built to do the job that it's designed to do. But then again, that's me not knowing a whole lot about it. But I don't disagree with you. I just don't have any real experience to defute it. But I mean, if that's what you've experienced in the past, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. Are ACI and NSX competing products? Technically, yes, they are, because they're two different vendors. Cisco ACI and VMware NSX. They essentially do the same thing, but the one thing that I've found over the past couple years is it's not ACI or NSX. It's using ACI with NSX. So NSX doesn't give two rapid tooties who your underlying switch fabric is, whether it's layer 2 end-to-end or layer 3 end-to-end. It doesn't really care, because at the end of the day, you're deploying TEPs, if you're on NSXT, to your compute nodes. You're deploying your edge nodes on your edge cluster. It doesn't really care what the underlying infrastructure looks like. There are ways inside of ACI with VMM integration to where you can deploy through ACI a VDS to your vCenter server, and then map your VM NICs to the VDS port groups and do that. But you can also do the same thing with NSXT. So it becomes a, what are you trying to do, right? Because some people would say, well, just deploy ACI, get rid of NSX. The other side of the half would say, well, hang on one second. I gotta... One moment, please. Hello. Alright, well that was fun. Family's out of town and my son wants to play on his PS4 and he needs a hotspot. Yeah, you'll the live stream will be available once it's done rendering, but I had whoops, clicked on the wrong thing. Yeah, so let's see. Let me go ahead and just make sure that this is, okay, Vmware Tools is good here. Awesome. And then let me make sure that pull up the command prompt on here real quick. One too many D's. Can you please? Yeah, oh, sorry. Next one. I've heard from many podcasts like Packet Pushers that some have configured ACI as the underlay with NSX as the overlay. Think of ACI underlay hosting multiple pods of. Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that. That's exactly what I would say too, because this way here, your NSX doesn't care what the underlying infrastructure looks like, whether it's ACI, whether it's a routed core. Stuff like that. So it's, I guess at the end of the day, there's going to be multiple ways to look at it, but the way of the future is to deploy a high-speed, low-latent underlay with no loops in it, and just do everything routed. Deploy whatever routing protocol you want in the underlay, and then in the overlay, you use high MTU overlay tunnels, whether it's NSXT, whether it's NSXV. Obviously, you probably wouldn't use V for long, but it's actually not as complicated as you would think. The way of the future, at least that's the way that things have been going for the past couple of years, is overlay everything, because it just makes it easier to interconnect things. VXLAN, and if you look at something like SD Access, it's using VXLAN and Lisp, where NSX is using Geneva, or NSXT is using Geneva encapsulation. So overlays are the way that things are going to go, and as long as you have interconnectivity, you're going to be fine. But it doesn't replace the need to know networking. But I have seen environments where they're doing other things, and that seems overcomplicated to me. But, to each their own. Let's see, I've got IP addresses there. Let me go ahead and deploy VMware tools on this guy real quick and get him squared away. The beautiful thing about anything in IT or systems/networking is that just about everything is open to interpretation to whoever is looking at it. So, if you've got your own opinion on something and you're in the middle of a discussion, voice your opinion. It's just a matter of making sure that you understand what's going on. No spanning tree in NSXT? No spanning tree in NSXT. NSXT is an overlay. So, well, it can be both actually. It can be an overlay and a VLAN. But no, NSXT, it depends on how you're referencing STP. Like STP in the backbone between your leafs and your spines, your core and your distribution, or in your access. Is that what you mean? Because a lot of folks still see that are like studying, they're between the CCNA, or they're working on CCNA, or they just got their CCNA and they're working towards NP, or maybe they switch gears and they're focusing on like AWS, or they've gone into the development side of the house and they're doing Python, and they don't have a really deep understanding of networking, and all they've learned is VLANs, trunking, spanning tree, ether channel, some basic static routes. I could see why folks would think that something like NSX and ACI would be overcomplicated or just too much to throw at the network. Why not just do something like, what the CCNA teaches you? The problem with that line of thinking is that it's legacy. A lot of customers nowadays are going to everything as overlay. Overlay what you need to, and then everything else goes on the regular network. If you have a solid built-in physical infrastructure, running overlays would be easy, but if the underlay is not set right, overlay. So just one literally just hit the nail on the head. Because that's basically what it comes down to. If your underlay is squared away, and I had this discussion a long time ago when I first started learning how NSXV worked. This is like 2015, 2016. It was one of those things where, as I was going back and forth with the folks that were They had a different line of thinking than I did when it came to the underlay, where if the underlay was goofed up, and I said, but you're always putting that as a caveat. The underlay is screwed up. If the underlay is good, then who cares what's in the overlay? So that's my way of thinking. If the underlay is good, right, your interconnectivity between your two ESXi hosts is squared away, then who cares what you do in the overlay? If you tunnel it, that's just one less thing. And the thing to keep in mind is that when we're talking about whether to overlay or not to overlay, it doesn't fix every problem, right? You wouldn't do overlays everywhere in the network. That just doesn't make sense, right? So if you're in the access and you've got a bunch of PCs connecting to a bunch of switches, that's pretty standard campus networking, right? But if you're in the data center and you have a much higher density of virtual machines, then I don't need to be learning a crap ton of MAC addresses from my ESXi hosts, depending on the density that I have. The only MAC addresses I would more than likely learn are just going to be the MAC addresses that are associated to the VTEPs. And that's really the only one that would come into play. And depending on how far you stretch your layer 2 environment, whether it's if it stops at your leaf switch, or if it stretches up to your core or your spines, that really depends on how much of an issue you're going to run into. I like your EVPN videos. Wouldn't the goal, even with NSX, to be minimize layer 2 at the Tor access? Keeping VLANs local, use NSX as the VTEPs and route between VTEPs. That's exactly the idea. It's exactly the idea, Mario. I have a ticket on my desk regarding VMs migrated to NSXT but lost their ability to get IP addresses from DHCP. What could be the cause of this? So, tickets on my desk regarding VMs migrated to NSXT. They were probably attached to a sure, Joe, I gotcha. So your VMs were originally attached to a standard switch or distributed switch port group that probably was VLAN associated, and that VLAN is probably you can bring DHCP into NSX, and that'll work, but they're probably their connection has lost. Are the VMs attached to an overlay segment or a VLAN back segment? Because if it's an overlay back segment, then it's going to go to the edge cluster first, and then from there it'll be able to go out to the physical environment. But if it's attached to a VLAN back segment, you don't actually need the edge cluster at all, or the edge VMs deployed. You can simply deploy segments and then associate the segments, and the segments then would be able to pull would be basically bringing the connectivity into the to the VM through the VLAN back segment. So, because you don't need to deploy overlay in NSXT, it's not required. It's an option for you to be able to do that. I've actually demoed it a couple times for customers. So, I'd have to know more about where they were coming from versus where they're going to, and then depending on where they were coming from would kind of point you in the right direction. So now that we have VMware tools installed, which is awesome, the next step here would be to, that's the admin. Go away, admin. I need to go get this guy squared away here. So local server. And then I'm going to turn off Internet Explorer Enhanced Security. Actually, you know what? I also need to go and put this guy on, what do you call it? Completely spaced out what I was going to say. I need to get him on a regular network too, so we can get out to the internet. So, but I will worry about that here in just a minute. Go ahead and refresh that. And then I'll change the computer name to be DC. I'm going to go ahead and just restart that because it's easier just to restart it. Now that I have that process started, I'm going to go create another VM, and I'm going to create my first CSR 1000V. So this will be host 1. I'm going to call this CSR1, and this will be other and 64-bit. CPUs, I'll give it 3072, 3 gigs of RAM, and then another network adapter. This network adapter is going to be in Vmware Lab Trunk. And what else do I want to put it in? I'll give this 300. I'll explain my connectivity here in just a minute once I get this part squared away. Where is 16.6? There we go. And then I need to go ahead and add another, not that one. I need to go ahead and add another device. I'm going to add a serial port to this guy. So I'll be able to, it's going to be use network. Yep, go away. Server port UI is going to be telnet :// and then be :2301, and that should be it. Next, finish. This will give me a router that I'll be able to deploy and act as my default gateway. Serial console, and then what I'll be able to do is here on secure CRT, this 100, this is 100. There it goes. So now I'm connected to this guy and via telnet, and as this router boots up, we'll start getting output on this guy, and I'll give him, he'll be my default gateway. I might have to swap around my, oh, you know what? Did I make a mistake? I think I did. So, yep, I know I did. If you go to Actions and then go to Edit Settings, my network adapters, I bet you they're E1000E. Yeah, so I'll have to pull the E1000E out here once it's done booting up. I'll have to swap them out to be VMXNet 3. So, but I will let it do its thing for the time being. There's other things that I can go work on. So let's go back over here to the DC. DC's rebooted now. We're going to go ahead and guest OS. Go ahead and log in. I'm going to go ahead and do the boot up, or set up the domain controller. Get that process started. This process can be a little slow at times depending on utilization on the server. Once the server manager pops up, we'll be able to start doing the domain controller install piece. There we go. Then I'll be able to join the PCs together. Okay, so we're going to go up Wait for this guy to finish up. Go to manage. Add rules and features. Oh, sorry, I'm going too quickly for it. It's not going fast enough for me. And this guy's just about ready to start booting up. Really? Hurry up already, would you? The only drawback to deploying stuff in a stream is stuff like this takes forever. Alright. Seems like I'm finally done capturing information. Yes, I am. I'm going to go to next tier, role-based and feature-based. And we'll make sure that we grab the DC. It's... Oh, did I not set the IP address? I guess I didn't. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. Properties. So we'll go ahead and 10.0.0.0.254. I'll do /24 and then 10.0.0.1. Preferred DNS right now. I'll throw in Google, but that's not going to stay. I'll use close. And we'll go ahead and previous. Next. Actually, let me cancel out of that. Wait till it's done doing its thing. Come over here and pull up the command prompt real quick. Pin this to the taskbar, and we'll do an IP config. Perfect. Now that he's there, manage, add roles and features. Next. Still pulling that one in there. That's weird. Anyway, we're going to deploy ADDS, Active Directory Domain Services. Add features. Next, 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 and then install. Once this is done doing an install, we'll go ahead and we'll then promote once it's done doing its install. Let's see. Do you think it is more beneficial to be a jack of all trades or a master of a few technologies? My opinion is it's better to be a master of a few technologies. I guess it depends on who you want to be in life. I know a lot of people that are comfortable being jack of all trades. It fits some folks. I've worked with some folks in the past where they were happy with working on help desk and then answering the phone. So every time it rang, it was you never knew what you were going to get. Kind of a Forrest Gump life is like a box of chocolates. That's not for everybody, obviously. It wasn't for me. I prefer being well versed in a few different things. I can say there's some stuff that I've forgotten for sure. Like right now, if I was to attempt the new Ccie Enterprise Infrastructure Lab exam, I know I would fail. I could probably hold my own for a while, but I don't think I'd pass on the first attempt. I'd have to really spend some serious time labbing it up. Same thing with service provider security. I'm not fast enough on the CLI to smash that right now. But I'm also not it's not a target on my radar. But I feel like as you progress through your career, there's going to be certain things that are going to pop up and you're going to get good at. Other things are going to fade away. I mean, it's like if you don't use it, you're going to lose it kind of deal. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But I've always been going to things that I'm interested in, because the moment I'm interested in something and I start pouring some effort into it, that stuff that I've learned it's not like I'm just reading a book or watching some videos and trying to retain whatever somebody said to me or whatever was written down. I'm actually going through the clickety-click stuff. So we're typing the commands in the CLI. So there's a level of retainment that you're going to get that you wouldn't get otherwise. At least that's how I see it. So I find, but you also, at least the way I do it, is I have to focus on one thing at a time. I can't focus on a couple different technologies at one time, and because then to me I'm splitting my resources of being able to pay attention in half. I'm only giving half the effort to something that if it's something that I really need to be good at, then I need to put the 100% effort into it. Like for example, a great example was the Ccie. I was not ready for it when I took the lab exam, but I had spent quite a bit of time learning it. So I figured, you know what? I'm already a CCIE, so why not just give it a shot and see how it shakes out. Well, obviously I didn't do horrible, but I also wasn't even near a pass. So it's one of those things where if you are learning things that you like, whether they're self-started, something you wanted to learn, or something your boss came to you and said, hey Mario, I need you to go tackle this particular thing because this project just got kicked off. We just got the budget just came through for it. You know, I'm sure you've been there too. But as I know I have. And then all of a sudden, you start diving into it, and before you know it, you get pretty good at it just from having spent some time on it. But that information that you've gained really never goes away, right? So it's filed away in some sort of vault, if you will, and eventually you can call back onto it. You might not be able to recall it as quickly as you could when you were deep diving it, but it's not like you don't know the answer at all and you have to go look it up. It's filed away somewhere. It might take you a couple seconds to think about it. So at least that's how I see it. But it seems to work out pretty well for me when I do it. So we're gonna set the forest up. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the whole thing. If you're really interested in learning whatever it is you're diving into, then you're going to be that much better off with it than you would be if you were like, oh crap, I really don't want to learn Mac. Like I have no interest in learning the Mac OS. It's a great product, but never going to catch Rob Reicher doing. Or for example, coding. Like being a full-time coder, never going to happen for me. Never going to happen. I might learn a few programming languages here to automate a task here or a task there, but I'm never going to be a full-time programmer. I'm a network engineer at my core. I'm also really good in VMware. I try to meld the two. I'd also love to be a Microsoft engineer, be really good at Microsoft, but take them one step at a time. I'm going to set the root domain to be NSX local and a new forest because I don't already have an existing forest deployed. I always do this. I've never actually joined an existing domain. I don't know how that would work. Speaking of being a Microsoft engineer, I'd really like to learn how, this side of the house works with AD and do like a deep dive into it, but I've just never taken the time to. And then we're going to have to set up all that good stuff. Yeah, no worries, man. I'll never BS somebody on where I'm coming from or how I feel on something because, it'll become very, very obvious if you were like, hey, can you do some coding videos? I'm like, sure, I can come up with something. I just don't think it's going to be very good. Like, if you really want to learn coding, go dive into somebody's training that's actually really interested in it because this guy doesn't care. Yeah, just give me the basics exactly. Yeah, I don't see myself doing anything hardcore like that. Now, I learned HTML in high school. That was cool. Being able to make a website pop up and stuff like that. That was cool while I was doing it, but I was like, 16, 17 years old? But beyond that, nah, not really. Don't have the interest. Although what's kind of cool is, what was it? A couple years ago, I had to do a pretty big Cisco AnyConnect deployment. And something that I had learned back when I was in high school when it came to HTML, reading HTML. It was very easy for me to read an XML output because I knew how to read HTML. HTML and XML look identical to each other, so I was like, oh yeah, I know how to edit this. So I just went in there and make the little edits where they needed to be made, and things worked just like that. I didn't need to go into a GUI and click on some buttons and enter some fields. I knew exactly where to edit stuff, which I'm sure would be the same situation if I was to learn coding and get halfway decent at it. I'm sure the same result would happen. I just don't care. There's people out there that I can probably go find just about anything that I want to do somewhere on GitHub or do some basic Google searches and then edit it a couple different times until I get to where I want it to be. And I'm sure you've seen that too. Very few times have I ever been like, I don't know how I'm going to automate this. Something always usually works itself out. Or I'll ping some people that I know that are really good at it, be like, hey, can you help me with this? Yeah. There's it's funny you say that. That was a common question that I used to get all the time when I was still teaching, and I got so tired of hearing it. I'm like, it was CCNA or Python, and I'm like, okay, how are you gonna automate the things that you don't know? Like, I would never be able to do that, but it's one of those things where, if DevNet is something that you're interested in going after, hey, more power to you. I'm sure I'll have to learn it to some level at some point in the future, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. It's not something that's like super interesting to me. But yeah, it's there's a reason why I went into infrastructure, and I'm sure you're the same way. Infrastructure is way cooler than coding. I know people that code and they're really good at it, and if I need help, those are the folks that I reach out to. That's one thing I also learned a long time ago is whatever I suck at, somebody else is good at. And whatever somebody else sucks at, I'm probably good at. So we'll just, I'll take advantage of your strengths. You can take advantage of my strengths. We'll have our weaknesses, and we'll offset each other. That's why you network with people on things like LinkedIn. You make friends, and you keep them close by, so if you need their help, they're there. Actually happens more than you'd think. And then, let's see. What's your opinion on Juniper? Boo! No, I'm just kidding. You have any experience with their plat? I do. I haven't touched it in a really long time. What was I deploying? What was I working with? SRX. I dealt with them, and I don't remember the platforms because it's been so long. I dealt with the SSG platform, I think is what it was. Screen OS. This is like 2014. 2014 was the last time I touched Juniper. And in production anyway. I played with it a little bit in the lab to, see if I could still figure my way through it, and I couldn't. But it's not bad. I don't have a lot of experience with it. I'm seeing more and more people get Juniper certified, and Juniper seems like they're gaining some market share from what I can see, although I'm not looking at the numbers. I'm just seeing what people are posting on LinkedIn. Folks like yourself who I see are going after Juniper certs and stuff like that, so someone needs to do it, right? I just don't. I don't want to. Nothing against the platform. At some point, I would... Actually, it's a friend of mine is a Ccie, and he was joking around with me a couple months ago via Twitter on direct message, and he said, "Hey, when are you gonna go get your Ccie?" And I'm like, "I'm not." And he goes, "Come on, man, you already know all the routing protocols." He's like, "All you have to learn is the syntax on Juniper, and you'd have a Ccie. You can take it from your house." I'm like, I don't work with Juniper, man. I'm like, if I'm going to put that much effort into something, I'm going to have to work with it quite a bit. And I just don't. But I can't say there's anything wrong with it. Just have no experience with it. Are you working with it on the SP side of the house, or is it like data center fabric, or how are you working with it? I'm curious. They seem to pick up a couple certs. Let's see here. Where's our admin PC? I feel like he's been just kind of hanging out here for a few minutes. He has been. So let's go ahead and let me go ahead and go to the control panel. Alright, now he's starting to work. We're going to go to System. And I'm going to go to System again. And then Remote Settings. I'm going to allow remote connections to this computer, and I'm going to uncheck network level authentication and do that. And I need to change the settings here and make this guy change his name to be admin. And once that happens, the domain controller will come online, and I'll just point the admin PC to the domain controller and join the domain. Alright, so let me see where I'm at here with this guy. Alright, this guy's squared away. Okay, so in case you guys ever deploy a CSR 1000V and you ever get this little error right here where it says the unsupported E1000E, I've actually got to power down the server and swap out the NICs for VMXNet 3. So that's one thing I had to do, but I'm going to go ahead and say hostname is going to be NSXT-router1. Let's save that config real quick. If anything, that actually I believe beat Cisco's Palo Alto on their firewall side of the house. Yeah, I agree with that. I've got some Palo experience for anybody that watched any of the Palo videos that I put out. Was it last summer, I think? I had fun with Palo, but like you're saying, there was one of those things where just I've got no problem with. I'm more of learning the technology than anything else. So, if, like for example, with like firepower, I'd love to learn that deeper. I'd love to learn ICE, and be good at it, and eventually learn all the different platforms that are on the CCA security blueprint. I don't want to be a Neil Moore with certifications necessarily, because he's got like a billion of them, but I could see myself totally pulling off, a couple of other major certs. But I'm more interested in just learning the technology, because you never know when you're going to have to work with it in production. That's kind of more or less my attitude towards it. It's not just Cisco's better than this or Palo's better than that. I've never really looked at it that way. It's always been more of a learn the technology, because you never know if you're going to have to use it in production kind of deal. So let me go ahead and get rid of these two network adapters and re-add two new ones. But this time here I'm going to choose VMXNet 3 on both of them. And I need to change this one to be Vmware Lab Trunk. And save. Go ahead and pull this back up here and enter key to pull it back up. Typically enterprise campus deployment SRXs for edge security. Diving into DC fabric QFXs. Yeah. EVPN on any platform is going to be tricky to learn, only because the fact of, well, it's EVPN. I actually enjoyed diving into EVPN. I thought it was cool. But I've got a background in the service provider side of the house, so to me, it was no different than dealing with MPLS layer 2 VPN. It was just using VXLAN as the encapsulation. And once I learned the VTEPs and making sure that there was routing between them, as long as whatever the VTEP, the VXLAN internal endpoint, was the IP address of that was advertised into the underlay, and the leaf switches could talk to each other, it was no different than making sure the loopback addresses of my provider edge routers were squared away for my point-to-point LSPs for doing L2 VPN. That's the way I looked at it, and it served me well. That's basically how I was able to get through it as quickly as I did. But I also spent a crap load of time on layer 2 VPN. I don't. The most I've ever added is 10, and that's because it was a limitation of VMware. So you'd have to see what the maximum amount is for a VM. Because off the top of my head, I don't. It could be 20, but I honestly have no idea. I've never tested that out. So as soon as I can get the this guy online, I'll connect him to the regular network, and then I'll get my server activated. I'm not too worried about it, but it is what it is. While I'm waiting for him to... Oh, he's just about there. Let me go over here to Tools and DNS. What's up, Burfan? How you doing, man? What do you think of the new IE blueprint? I'm preparing for it now, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to crash and burn on the automation part. You know what, man? I honestly have no idea. I don't know what's going to be on the blueprint or what's going to be tested on. I see some people passing the exam on LinkedIn, and I'm like, hey, good for you. But beyond that, I honestly have no idea. And just like you, if I was to go take the lab exam right now, I would bomb. I don't know if I would bomb it. I know I wouldn't pass, but the automation piece would probably be the one that would get me. Yeah, that's basically the one part that would kick my butt. See, I have the high-level design and use case understanding for VXLAN in the DC, but no experience at all in the SPC arena. So, okay, yeah, if you have the ability of getting a couple of CSR 1000 Vs inside of Eve, what I'd recommend is spin up a total of 6 of them. So basically 2 rows of 3, and a couple of iOS V routers on the outside to act as customer edge routers. And how I learned layer 2 VPN was I did on the CSRs in the core, 2 provider core and then 4 provider edge. Connect them all via OSPF and MPLS. Advertise the loopbacks, and then start with doing just point-to-point XConnect. Do an XConnect at the interface level, and then get the iOS V routers to ping each other, and make sure that if you're doing a Wireshark capture, so you can see the actual encapsulation. You'll see the ICMP and the MPLS headers pop up. That's how I learned how to do it, and I did it by being on the command line and reading the documentation. Nick Russo's book, the CCIE SPv4 Comprehensive Guide, was awesome, and then INE's SPv4 content was pretty good for layer 2 VPN. That and the documentation was pretty much everything that I read, and I just labbed the crap out of it. And then you'll get into VPLS, and but point-to-point pseudo wires, VPLS, HVPLS, and even if you're going to deal with what's that other one that's out there? A seamless MPLS, where you're doing like multiple areas. When you're dealing with that type of stuff, that's all data plane learned. Like if you were to do VXLAN flood and learn with multicast, basically the same thing. Where if you want to throw BGP in there for doing the control plane learning and using type 2 routes and type 3 routes, where you're doing ingress replication, that's where you're going to start getting into the control plane learning piece of it. And that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. But I don't want to say learn MPLS layer 2 VPN first and then learn VXLAN, but because I had the layer 2 VPN piece already understood, it made the VXLAN piece, it was just learning the nuances for that. But that seemed to help me out a lot. But because then you're just swapping out the encapsulation. You're swapping MPLS labels out for VXLAN VNIs. That's basically all you're doing, and a little bit bigger of a header. So just put 9000 as your MTU in the core, and you're off to the races. It made it really, really easy to work with. But that's all I did. But it's the theory first, and I like the way you're approaching it, because if you can nail down how layer 2 VPNs work and how they are a point-to-point overlay pseudo wire, once you get that point knocked down and you're in good shape with it, then everything else will fall into play. Because then it'll be what are the small specifics to it? You know, like, am I going to do flood and learn? Am I doing flood and learn with IR? Am I doing flood and learn with multicast? Am I doing BGP? Am I doing multi-site? You know, what are my specifics to that? But it's not too terrible. It's and you're not going to be dealing with VPC because you're not on Nexus. But and I don't know if Juniper has if they probably do. I just don't know the name of it. Where they have a VPC or like an MLAG solution going down to your from your top of rack switches down. Yeah, you don't need to use the XR boxes for that though. You can use CSR 1000Vs. It works in the data plane there because they're a different build. So yeah, you could use L2 VPN X-Connects in the CSR 1000V, but not on the XRs. So let me go ahead here and add a couple of host names in here. We're going to start off with DC1 host 1, and this is going to be 10.0.0.11. No problem, hater. And we'll go ahead and do DC1 host 2. No worries, Bill. No worries at all, man. That's what I'm here for. Point you guys in the right direction. Let's see here. And we're going to throw vCenter in here. And this one will be 10.0.0. What do I want to put this one in as? I'll put this one as 31. Because I have no idea how many ES6i hosts I'm going to deploy yet. vCenter. Yeah, we'll go ahead and DC1 host 3. And then 10.0.0.13. Add host. Okay, that's all of my DNS records. Curious if you have ever run SRv6 or SRMPL segment routing in prod. I have not. That is, I have demoed SR before, but it was strictly in a lab. I've never actually done anything SR in production. It's not very common from what I've gathered, and I'm talking to like people that do that type of stuff a lot. It's not very common, but you know, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I get the basics to it, but I've never really worked with it. Let me go ahead and get this guy joined to the domain real quick, and then I can go ahead and upload the upload vCenter. I'm a little behind schedule for what I wanted to do, but trying to get these boxes online was taking a little longer than I would have liked. But yeah, that's okay. Let me go ahead and got 2 NICs, so let me just make sure that these NICs are squared away the way that they need to be. Let me go ahead and edit settings. So, okay, so gig 2, let me swap these around. Make this VM network and this Vmware Lab Trunk. I always like it to be set up this way. It just makes it easier to have them. The VM network on top, adapter 1, and Vmware Lab Trunk on the bottom. Alright, so now that I've done that, let me go ahead and rejoin this guy. So then I'll be able to go ahead and get the IP addressing squared away. Let me, while that's doing that, let me get this guy started pointed towards the domain. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but it's a lot of little things to do. The more times you do them, the better off you are, right? That's how I look at it. So on Ethernet 0, details, DNS server's not set. So let me go ahead and properties, set the DNS server to be 10.0.0.254. Click on OK. Yes, that's fine. Close. Close. And then I'm going to go, actually, you know what, let me pull the default gateway out of this one. I don't actually need the default gateway. Other devices will, for just getting out to the internet to do activations. So now that I've got that, let me go close this one out and this one, and I'm going to go back to control panel, and then system again, and this time here I'm going to change settings, and I'm going to join the nsx.local domain, and then we're going to get prompted for our password, administrator, and the password, and then we'll join the domain. We're in the domain. We're going to go ahead and reboot, close, restart now, and if I jump back over here to the domain controller and pull this up, go to tools, DNS, we'll see that once the admin computer comes back online, he'll pop up here. But let me go ahead and, while that box is working on that, let me go ahead and get this guy squared away. I'll pull him online. So the IP address here will be, what did I give this guy last time? Show IP interface brief. Show VLAN brief. $300. Okay, and where are these? Show run interface VLAN 300. Okay, perfect. So I will do the same thing right here. So IP address will be 172.30.0.2/24. No shut, and then IP OSPF 1 area 0. And we should form an OSPF adjacency here. I run OSPF in my home lab in case anybody was curious. We're going to do ping 172.30.0.1. Make sure I can ping it. Okay. First troubleshooting issue. These are always fun. Alright, so let's see. Show interface gig 1. I'm dealing with A2C0. A2C0 Vmware. Oh, I know why. Okay, that's my fault. I need to change that network adapter. So let's go to edit. Oh, you probably couldn't see what I was doing. I have to come over here and change the VM network to be VLAN 300. That should fix that. And we'll do a ping to 172.30.0.1. That should work now. And show IP OSPF neighbor. There we go. Show IP route. Alright, now I'm learning everything. So now I get to go to interface gig 2. I'm going to say no shut. IP address here will be 10.0.0./24. And I'm going to go type in IP OSPF 1 area 0 to get that advertised. And pull up the domain controller. And IP config. I'm going to ping 10.0.0.1. I can ping my default gateway. Question is, can I ping Google? Not yet. Why can't I ping Google? Do I not have a default route? I do have a default route. Why am I not able to ping Google? Ah, gateway of last resort is not set. Why did that not come through? Show IP OSPF database. Am I not learning a default? I am learning a default. Why is it not getting... Show IP OSPF interface brief. Am I not show run section OSPF? I am doing default information originate. Interesting. Well, I think I was learning a minute ago. Where'd it go? Yeah, it was right there. Show IP OSPF neighbor. Okay. Alright, well, you know what we'll do? IP route. I'll just pointer. Just throw a default in there. 2172.30.0.1. I don't feel like messing with it. Show IP route. Okay. Perfect. So now if we go back to this guy, let's see. Let me jump on my firewall real quick, because I do need to provide access here to the internet for a couple of these boxes so that they can get. Let's do a quick show route. 10.0.0. Oh, that's right. Okay, so I'm glad I've caught this. So I've got this 10.0.0 subnet here is on my connection between my firewall and my Cisco switch. This guy right here. Right here. So I can't use that subnet, so I have to change it to 10.0.1. 10.0.1. I forgot about that. I made that mistake last time, and I forgot to fix it. But that's an easy fix to make. So I'm going to go up here and interface gig 2. IP address here will be 10.0.1.1/24. And we're going to do right real quick. Do show IP route. Let's make sure that my firewall is seeing it. OSPF. Show route. Oh, really? 10.0 right there. Perfect. It is seeing it come through. All I need to do now is change the IP address around. And that's easy to do. I might have to change a couple of other IPs, but the only IPs that I really need to care about right now are my domain controller. Everything else doesn't really need internet reachability. So let's go ahead and swap that out to be this guy. And that's fine, that'll work. Close, close. There we go. There it goes. I have internet access now, which is what I needed. Alright, now that I have that squared away, the next thing for me to go do is to change the IP address on the admin computer real quick. Actually, let me go back over here to DNS. If I come up here and refresh, the admin computer is here, but the admin computer is added dynamically because it joined DNS or the domain by a domain add at the local device level. So we're good to go there. So the last thing I need to go here and do, actually I need to go and make a couple of other edits. Let me go to the host 1 DC. I need to go Tools, DNS, and I need to change these over to be all 10.0.1. So apply. And this one. And last but certainly not least, the admin computer. I'll change him locally at the PC level too. Everything else is good. Perfect. Good deal. Alright, so now I'll close him out. Come over here to the admin PC. Change his IP address around real quick. And then, because I'm in a domain now, I'm going to go to other user. Actually, I'm going to log in as the admin, or as admin here locally. I'll change the IP address because the IP address changed. I'm probably going to have a problem with connecting via the domain anyway. So let me go ahead and just do that real quick. I'll log in locally, make it the adjustment, and then log out, log back in. Come on, don't take forever. And then after this, it'll be pulling in vCenter server and deploying that. Go ahead and adjust this real quick. Nope, wrong one. Properties. IPv4. And then 10.0.1 and 10.0.0.1. There we go. Close. Let me go ahead and ping. Don't think. You're right. kind of like getting bit by a spanning tree. Yep, you are true. That's true. Fortunately for me, I leveraged the time on the host. So everything just grabs whatever the time on the ES6i host is, because I'm just deploying everything to the host. I don't really have that problem, but if you're not, you can run into a problem, which is why NTP is rather useful. So I'll ping 10.0.1.254, and I did turn the firewall feature on. Okay, cool. I can ping it, which is good. Go ahead and close this out. I'm going to go ahead and pull over the... Do I have it on? I don't think I have it on this. Yeah, I don't have it on this computer yet. I'm actually going to go back to cam only for a couple minutes, just until I get my thing squared away here. Go ahead and come on. Home. Oh, this PC. Never mind. Computer. Map and network drive. Do a whack 10.255, 10.10. Browse. Expand. Authenticate. In case anybody's curious, I use a QNAP storage appliance. Thing is freaking awesome. Love this thing. Never going back to Windows file sharing ever again. Go here. And I'll do this twice actually. I'll do one for Microsoft ISOs, because I have a lot of stuff saved in that for deployments later on. And I'll also do one for VMware to pull in the NSX bits. Okay, and then last but certainly computer, map another network drive. Whack whack. Browse. And then I'll pull up my VMware folder. And finish. Okay, give me 1 second to start copying the folder over. Copy, documents, paste. Alright, so let me go back over here to screen share. Alright, so now that I've got this guy squared away, I'm going to go ahead and right now I'm copying that stuff over. This is going to take a few minutes to pull over, but once it starts pulling it over, we'll be able to go and have it locally on this box, and I'll be able to push the install from the admin PC to the ESXi host, and then that's where we'll pretty much, as that's working, we'll also be deploying additional ESXi hosts. I have a couple more that I want to deploy. QNAP was cool. Do you have SAS and multi? Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I have. One NIC is associated to my iSCSI environment, and then the other NIC is mapped to my home network for all my file sharing. So if there's ever anything I download or I need to do a file share, I just copy it to it. It's pretty awesome what the thing can do, for sure. I enjoy the heck out of it. But so that'll take some time. While that's working, I'm going to close this guy out, and I'm going to go to virtual machines. I'm going to deploy 2 more ESXi hosts. This one here will be host 1-ESXi2. Go other and select 6.5. Next, QNAP. And as I mentioned earlier when I kicked this thing off, we're going to do 4 CPUs, but in order for you to run VMs inside of a VM, you need to expose hardware-assisted virtualization to the guest OS, or else it won't work. And I also click on some of these other ones just for good usage. We'll go 10-240 for 10 gigs of RAM. The hard disk, I'm going to thin provision it. And then I'm going to add a couple more network adapters. All of these are going to get mapped to the VMware Lab Trunk. The host device, I'm going to change that to data store ISO file. And then Vmvisor installer 6.7 update 1. And then next, and then finish. This install process is pretty quick once you get the hang of it. And I'm going to go ahead and start booting this guy up. Check on the admin PC while we're thinking about it. This piece takes a while. Let me go ahead and I should be able to RDP to him now. I come over here to 71. Connect. Yep, and then it'll be NSX WAC administrator. So I'll do a domain-based login. Even though the computer I'm connecting from isn't on the domain, I'll be able to connect to it anyway. And this is how we're going to go through and work with the rest of our deployment. We'll be RDP'd into the box. And yes. Go ahead and OK. We'll wait for that to do its thing. Close this guy out. Go ahead and click on enter to get this bad boy started. Let me go ahead and scoot this over a little bit. F11 to accept the install. We're going to put it in the 40 gig drive, set the password. F11 to install, go back to our RRTC session. This thing's taking its sweet old time. Usually it does the first time you RDP into it, but should work pretty quick here once we get a little further along. So yeah, good stuff. Once the NSX or once the vCenter piece is copied over to the host, I'm then going to push it to this guy. I'm actually going to deploy vCenter right here at the host level. And then because it's all on the same network from a management perspective, it'll be in the same network from a management perspective inside of ESXi, then I'll be able to connect vCenter to the domain controller and all that good stuff. And that'll give me the ability of doing DNS lookups and things like that. So it's pretty cool once it gets all squared away. As soon as this wants to hurry up and get there. My host will be installed before my RDP session comes up. It doesn't help that I'm doing a fairly large file copy while I'm trying to RDP into a box. That definitely doesn't help. But once this is good to go, we'll be squared away. Then we'll start the install process. I'll keep pushing the get one more ESXi host installed. I'm gonna do a total of 1 second here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 of them total. That's gonna be 2 data centers that I'm gonna roll this out on. I'm gonna do a mixed bag of VNT as we're going forward. So you'll get to see both. Obviously not tonight, but I will continue pushing this stuff out as we go along, but it'll take some time to well, this is taking forever. Did it finally pop through? No, but still. I wonder if it's nearly done doing its copy. Maybe I should have waited until I was done copying before I decided to try to RDP into it. Let me close that out. Log in this way. Oh, you know what? I bet you that's part of the problem. I logged in locally. That's why. I forgot that I hadn't logged in this way via an admin yet. Alright, so now this guy's squared away. I'm going to go ahead and do F2, set up, whoops. Root, and then the password. I have a hotkey on my computer set up to where if I press F2 it goes full screen with me, and I'm using OBS to stream with, so that I can jump back and forth between I can turn that camera on, I can jump full screen or do screen, turn everything on and off as I'm going along. Gives me a lot of flexibility when I'm streaming. 10.0.1.12/24 mask. And 10.0.1.1 and 10.0.1.254. That's going to be dc1-host2.nsx.local. Take care of that. Yes. And that's pretty much it. This thing is taking its sweet old time, isn't it? CPU must be pegged. Yep, it is. CPU's at 100%. All right. Well, we're pretty much at a holding pattern. I'm gonna. Do you see VMware favoring NSX-T over V? Oh heck yeah! NSX-V is going away in the next 6 months. I'm working on a lot of V to T migrations right now. Nobody's deploying V long term. VMware's not going to support it anymore. So they're forcing people to go to T. T's got a lot more flexibility too. You're not tied directly to vCenter anymore. You can work outside of vCenter. So NSX-T is here to stay, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that T does that V does not. So the load balancing is one of the key things. But yeah, I'm releasing a lot of V videos only because of the fact that I already recorded them. You might as well release them anyway. Yeah, I'll be covering T here pretty in depth very, very soon. But my next goal is to knock out T content. And then once I've got the T content knocked out, I'm going to go and do desktop. But I'm also going to take the VCP for DTM here soon too. Excuse me. So that'll be cool. Looking forward to that. So hopefully this will get done pretty quick. And while I am pull that up, let me go ahead and ping DC1-host1. That's hilarious. Oh, did I not change the IP? I bet you I didn't change the IP addresses. I know what the problem is. Host 1. Yep. Let me go ahead and F2 this. Yeah, I'll fix this here in a second. Let me go back over here to F3. So the problem is the host is still configured with the wrong IP address. That's the problem. This is what happens when you configure stuff ahead of time and you realize you made a mistake and then you have to go in there and fix it. So let me go to host 2 as well. Host 2. Okay, that one's good. Perfect. So I should be able to come up here. That one will respond now. And so should host 2. Perfect. Alright, now that that works, I'm going to go ahead and deploy host 3 as well. Well, yeah, I'll continue just deploying hosts at this point. I'm waiting for this gigantic file copy. Oh, it's finally finished. Just about. Almost there. No, not yet, no. Yeah. Actually, yes. I had to think there for a second. I've got one that I'm working on right now. And I'm not deploying vCenter. I'm working in vCenter environments that are 7.0, but we're deploying NSX-T 3.1. So, yeah, we are doing them. Not a lot of people are on 7, from what I'm seeing. Not a lot of, still a lot of people on 6.5. I got a couple of projects that I'm working on now that are migrating from 6.0 to 6.7 and upgrading that type of stuff and stuff like that. But not a lot of folks have jumped the gun to 7 yet, unless they're doing like a brand new greenfield deployment or a brand new data center, and that's their part of their migration strategy is new data center, new vCenter deployment, new NSX-T, and then eventually they'll take their legacy environment and they'll upgrade to be parallel to it. That's something I see happening too, but not a lot of folks are on 7 yet. Adoption's not very quick in the real world. Even if you're up to speed on 7, not a lot of folks have cut over to it yet. So now we have that done. Let me go ahead and close. Let me go ahead and close this out. And I bet you I'm logged in as admin too, I bet. Yeah, admin. So let me go ahead and admin. Let's go ahead and sign out. And then I'll log back in as the administrator at NSXT. Or, yeah, NSX. Alright. So the cool thing about this is, because I've logged in and because the bits are already here, it'll be easy to move them around. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've only got a handful of environments that are even partially on 7. I got a good large amount that are on 6.7, update 1, update 2. Quite a few that are on 3 because you need at least 3 to deploy NSXT. So, yeah, there's a lot going on with that. So in the documents folder here, yeah, see documents is empty here. So if I go to this PC, C drive, and then go to users, admin, and then documents. Here's the vCenter server appliance on that user. If I just come in here and cut it out, cut, and then put it onto my, paste it here. That should only take a couple seconds to move. Did I just hose myself again? Calculating. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. If I was to leave it here, I can pull it in. Let me just cancel that. I'll just leave it there. Let me go ahead and RDP into that box. And we'll log in as administrator. I'll accept that. Hopefully this time it pops up quicker. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so here I'm in on that NSX. So this will settle down. So now what I get to go do is deploy a vCenter server. Deploying vCenter server isn't very complicated, but there are some nuances and some things you're going to have to pay attention to. One of the first things you're going to want to do is go into the VCSA, go to the UI installer, 132, and then scroll all the way down here to the bottom where you get the installer. When this guy shows up here, this is what you want to click on. Click on the installer, and you'll go through the install process. This will take some time, but because of the fact that we're on bare metal, it should go by pretty quick. Hopefully. We're going to go and do an install. It's a dual stage process. One thing though you need to make sure you have is you want to make sure that you've got a DNS entry for DNS, and that whatever network that you want vCenter to be on should have access to the DNS server. So we're going to put it on the VMware Lab Trunk port group. So we're going to accept the license agreement. The deployment, we're going to do a vCenter server with the embedded platform services controller. When you're pointing to the host that you want to deploy it on, you're going to want to point to the IP address, not the fully qualified domain name. So 10.255.1.100. And then we're going to put in root and the password for the root account on ESXi. And sure, we're going to accept that thumbprint. And then I'm going to call this guy here just vCenter. The password for this guy is going to be the same password I use for everything. Capital P @SSW0RD. Obviously, it's in a lab, not in production. I don't want to make it that easy for him. We're going to use a tiny deployment, 2 CPUs, 10 gigs of RAM, 300 gigs of storage, up to 10 hosts, and actually, technically speaking, should go to 100 because I'm going to be doing 12. Oh, no, wait, no, it's going to be 2 different vCenters. 8 on one, 4 on the other, so it'll be fine. So we're going to enable thin disk mode. We're going to put on the QNAP. And then VM network, we're going to come down here to go to VMware Lab Trunk. The IP address is going to be static. It's going to be vcenter.nsx.local. IP address here will be 10.0.0.31. 24-bit mask. 10.0.0. Whoops. 1.1. 1.31. DNS server is going to be 10.0.1.254, and click next and finish. So now it's going to go ahead and push the vCenter vApp out to the ESXi host. If we were to minimize this and then scroll down to the bottom here, you can see, maybe I'm in the way, down here at the bottom where it's going to start pushing the importing the vApp. This process will take a little bit, but because we're on bare metal, it should go by pretty quick. But as this process does its thing, it'll push the vApp to ESXi, and then once it's on the ESXi host, it'll go ahead and go through its boot up process and install. But that's pretty much where that's at. So it doesn't take terribly long. It's just one of those things where if you're not paying attention to it or you're not familiar with the process, this can be a little tricky. You don't have to deploy it this way. You could deploy from right here. If you were to click on the VCSA, you could go into either use the OVF tool to deploy. That's another option as well. Or if you wanted to deploy, go into ESXi and deploy as an OVA, you could call this file right here. You can do that as well. There's like 75 ways to deploy vCenter. I mean, there's like 6, 7, but this is just one of the number of ways that you can do it. But this gets the job done, and as you're going through it and doing it, it just takes a little bit of time for it to get pushed and to get to where it's got to go, and then you're in really good shape. So I'm going to go full screen again. I can keep deploying ESXi hosts, which I'm going to. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this for the moment. I'm going to close this guy out. I've got, how many deployed? 3 of them? 2 of them. vCenter is getting rolled out. I'm going to go ahead and push out another ESXi host. I'm going to do a total of my whiteboard says 8. So guess I'm doing 8. 8 in this data center, 4 in another one. And if we look at the host, we're looking at about 5 gigahertz of CPU and 28 gigs of RAM. So I've got lots of capacity that I can throw at this thing. So this is pretty much my VMware Lab server. Actually, I've got 2 of them, but this is one of them. This is the bigger of the 2. But it gets the job done with what I need it to do. So what videos of yours can I go to so that I can mimic your setup? Specific videos off the top of my head, there's a VMware physical lab setup that I did a while ago. You can go look that one up. But there's a lot of videos. It depends on what you're looking to do. If you're looking to do VMware, anything new for the most part. But if you're looking to do Cisco, anything that's VMware NSX, or VMware NSX, Cisco Data Center VXLAN. What was the last thing I did before that? I don't remember. It's been so long. But just I have a lot of playlists, so just scroll through. If you're looking for specifics on how I deployed the server, there's a VMware physical lab setup that I show you, and then it goes down to like I'm like literally behind the servers and showing you all how it's all connected. But that'd probably be the best way to do it. I really do need to do another walkthrough video of my home lab and do the physical and the logical side of it, so everybody can see. It's been a while since I've done one of those, and do an update video. But I don't have a specific video that goes through all that right now, but since you bring it up, it probably is a good time to go do that. While I'm waiting for vCenter to deploy, I'm going to go ahead and deploy another, and what's cool is vCenter is now powered on. If we go back over here to this guy, the installation process is going through its stages. Once this gets to 100%, we'll then be able to do stage 2, and that'll take some time to go through and do. But this will usually take about 15-20 minutes in this part. So while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to go over here and create a couple more VMs. So we'll do a host 1-ESXi3 and give it 4 CPUs. And don't forget to expose the hardware assisted virtualization to the guest OS or it won't work. And give it 10 to 240 for 10 gigs of RAM. Hard disk space, we're going to thin provision it. And one too many network adapters. Put this all on VMware Lab Trunk. Host device, data store, pull, VM visor, and next, and then finish. And then we're going to go, I might as well create host 4 as well, because I'll create a couple compute clusters once we're all deployed. I still have to deploy the storage area network yet. I'll do that here in a minute. We'll do host 1-ESXi4. And basically do the exact same thing we just did a minute ago. Swap these over to be VMware Lab Trunk. And next and finish. Okay, let's see where we're at with this deployment. Still sitting at 80%, that's okay. Just gotta take some time. So we're gonna go ahead and I'll get this guy started here. Get the third ESXi host going. But beyond that, we're just about where we want to be. This does take a little bit of time. I'm thinking it'll probably be a total of 4 hours total deployment time between getting all the hosts deployed, getting vCenter up and running, getting storage squared away, deploying NSXT Manager, getting it integrated, and then we'll be in good shape. Let's see where we're at here. Still thinking about it. Kind of a hurry up and wait kind of deal, but alright, we'll go ahead and get this bad boy started. Enter. We're going to do F11 to accept. get that done. And F11 to install. Alright, there we go. So this is more like it. So we're starting to get to the point where we're in good shape. If I were to watch your NS6V playlist, would learning NS6T be easier to grasp? Yes, it would. There's some significant differences between V and T, architecturally and deployment, but a lot of the same terms are used. So you get NS6T, you get NS6 Manager, and V, you have a control VM that you have to deploy. It's usually done in clusters of 3. You can deploy it with 1. It works. In NS6T, you would typically deploy in manager and clusters of 3 for managers. The NS6 Manager and the controller VM are actually integrated now in T, so you deploy the 3 managers in a group, cluster. Logical switches are now called segments. In the DLR has been replaced with the distributed router at both the tier 0 and the tier 1 gateway. If you have the Edge Services gateway has been replaced with the Edge VM and the tier 0 gateway. So a lot of the same terms in a very similar architecture, but different way of doing things. So if you learn one, the other will be pretty easy to grasp. It'll just be understanding the differences between V and T. And the cool thing about the lab that I'm building is it's going to incorporate both V and T at the same time. So eventually I'll do a migration from V to T. And I'm going to be doing, actually, this lab rebuild that I'm doing, I'm going to blow it all the way again and build it from the ground up again. But I'm going to do a different variation of the deployment or the migration, because you can do a lift and shift, V to T migration, or you can do an end-to-end V to T migration. So there's different ways of doing it. I still have to read through the migration guide. I'm still working my way through the reference design guide, but there's a lot of different things that you can do with the platform. It's just that you have to take the time to learn it. Once you grasp the concepts, there's really not that much of a difference between the two, and you'll be pretty squared away for the most part once you're there. But if you get decent with V, T will be not that much of a stretch. There'll be some additional learning for sure, but not like you're trying to learn it from scratch from the day one. Especially if you have to work with any customers that are working with V and you know V and you know T, you're going to be, I don't want to say a hot commodity, but you're definitely going to be more in demand than somebody that is only familiar with just one. A lot of customers are moving V to T migrations, and that's what I deal with pretty much every day now. So it's good to know both, for sure. Go ahead and reboot this guy. And all right, good deal. Let's see where we're at with this one. 95. So once this part's done, you'll get a prompt to begin stage 2, which will begin here in just a couple of minutes. Let's see where we're at here. 96. One of the things we're also going to be doing or having to leverage is going to be vSphere Update Manager. We're going to have to upgrade a couple of our ESXi hosts to 6.7 Update 3. And I like going through the process of using Update Manager because keeps me fresh on how it works, but it's not terribly difficult to get working. So wow, 22 likes already. Wow, you guys are awfully generous with the likes today. Alright, so now this guy's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and get him squared away real quick. I'm just going to jump over here, and then I'll jump back. We'll do this. Go ahead and well, I'm glad you think the quality is good and the subjects are worth listening to. So we'll do a 10.0.1.13/24 and 10.0.1.1. DNS config will be 10.0.1.254, and we'll do dc1-host 3.nsx.local. There we go. So now that's done. We're going to go ahead and refresh the management changes, and that's that. So we'll go back over here. This guy should be just about done, and he is. Perfect. Alright, so good timing. So vCenter deployed well with an embedded platform services controller. The next thing for us to go do would be to finish the setup. You can do it one of two ways. You can click on continue, and you'll do it with inside of this guy right here, or you can open up your web browser and go to this web page, which is the HTTPS appliance management interface, or the AMI. Either way will work. It comes with the same result. I've tested both out just to see what they would look like. I'm going to go through this way because I'm right here. But stage 2 is doing the finalization, where the actual server comes online, all the services start, stuff like that. So I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to use SSH. I'm going to enable SSH. I'm not going to be doing vCenter high availability right now, but if you were, this is where you would, SSH has to be turned on. We're going to synchronize time with the ES6i host, which is why I don't have issues with time. The SSO config, we're going to use vsphere.local, and the password that I've been using. When I go to add a second vCenter server to for a second domain, or a second domain, a second data center, I will be joining an existing SSO domain at that point in time. So we'll be able to do what they call enhanced linked mode, which is required for NSXV to do any of its advanced capabilities with like cross vCenter communication. You need to have them glued together, but other than that, we're going to leave it with create a new SSO domain for right now. And we'll go ahead and join the Ccie IP, and when it gets to this point, we're going to go ahead and click on finish, and once you start, you can't stop. So click on OK, and then we go to this next part, which is basically bring a vCenter server online. Now, one thing that I will make mention to everybody is that when I was messing around with this before, I didn't want to use vsphere.local as my local domain for the local OS login. I wanted to use something else, and every time I would do it, it would fail to install. So I started using vsphere.local, and then I would join it to an AD environment later on. I would join all of my hosts. I would have a dedicated domain. I would use whatever domain I was working with. So if I'm working with NSX, it's going to be nsx.local. If it's Horizon, it's going to be HZN for Horizon. So it made it easier to work with that way. You get in the habit of doing things a certain way, and it just works. So once we get past this point right here, which we're in the right direction now. The Workspace one, or VMware Identity Management Service, is going to get deployed, and eventually this will go to 100%, and vCenter server will be online. And then we'll be able to actually connect to vCenter and start creating data centers and adding hosts and adding clusters and stuff like that. Now, while that's working on it, I'm going to come back over here. I've got 3 hosts deployed. I'm going to leave the 4th one for right now. I'm going to go ahead and deploy our storage appliance so that when it comes time for us to pull in storage, which will be coming up here pretty soon, the storage appliance will be ready to go. To deploy storage in this environment, I'm going to be using TrueNAS, which is a replacement for FreeNAS. Come over here, and I'm going to call this host 1-SAN. The operating system is going to be Linux, and I'm just going to use Ubuntu. Where's Ubuntu? 64-bit. Click Next. We're going to put this on QNAP. I'm going to give this guy 2 CPUs, 4 gigs of RAM. I need to give it another hard drive. This hard disk right here can get thin provision, 16 gigs. This guy right here, this first disk, will be where the actual TrueNAS OS gets installed to. This hard drive right here that we're going to add, this is the hard drive that will actually be used to serve up the storage to the ESXi host. So I'm going to give this guy 250 gigs, and I'm going to go ahead and thin provision this one. I'm going to add another disk here, and this is also going to be 250 gigs. So I'm going to have 2 different LUNs, LUN 0 and LUN 1. So I'll be able to pick and choose. So LUN 0 will be for doing like VM stuff and whatnot, where LUN 1 will be for NSX edges and things like that that I want to deploy things to. Then provision this as well. You can add as many disks as you want. I think there's a upper limit, but I honestly don't remember what they are. If I want to add another LUN in here, I could, and I can have 3 LUNs and start spreading out the storage that way. VM network, I'm going to create another network adapter, and this one will be VMware Lab Trunk. This will be VMware network, VM Lab Trunk as well. One will be VLAN 1, which will be my management network. The other one will be for connecting in via the storage on VLAN 12. Data store ISO file. I'll click on TrueNAS here, click on Select, Next, and then Finish. So now that's good to go. I'm going to click on Host 1-SAN, and we're going to go through the deployment process. So this is actually pretty easy to do. Hit the Enter key, and TrueNAS will begin deploying. I used to use FreeNAS. I thought there was a problem with FreeNAS. Like the OS had freaked out on me. The problem that I was running into was I was trying to, it's a FreeNAS issue, I was trying to deploy a data store on VMFS 6, which is the newest version of VMFS. Well, it didn't work, and I kept on looking it up, and then I was like, well, what if I just try 5? 5 works no problem. 6 does not. So you have to use VMFS 5. You're not really losing a whole lot with 6. Or I'm sorry, with 5. So we're going to go ahead and do this. It wants you to use 8 gigs of RAM. It's not enough, but yes, if we want to continue, yes, it's more than enough. You notice we have 3 different disks, or disk A0, disk A, or DA1, DA2. Spacebar to choose DA0, which is going to be our installed drive. And then, are we going to erase all the partitions? Yes, it is. And then the password we're going to set for this guy. And we're going to boot via BIOS. And now it's going to go ahead and install the operating system. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now let me go back over here to my RDP session, and somehow it wants to be a pain in the other end. There it goes. So we're at 60% already. This will take a few minutes to finish doing its thing, but we know we're in good shape when it gets to this point. So we're going to go ahead and just let it do its thing. Right now we're kind of in a hurry up and wait process again, because we're installing the TrueNAS storage appliance. And once we're there and that's booted up, I'll show you guys how to set up iSCSI with 2 different LUNs. It's pretty simple stuff, but again, I've also been through probably 15, 20 times over the past few months. So I've gotten kind of good at building these. So if I ever needed to build a lab environment in production, I'd be okay. Lots of experience. Correct. That is exactly right. I tried to make the QNAP box act as my storage appliance, and after a few hours of monkeying with it, I could not get it to work the way that I wanted it to. So I deployed my own storage appliance, and it works out great. I've got no problems with it. And everything works the way that it's supposed to. Allows me to deploy iSCSI and go through all that process and stuff like that. So works out pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and reboot the system now. And when it boots back up, we'll be able to get it configured. For the physical ESXi host, I still use QNAP. And I've got one NIC dedicated for iSCSI. So, works out pretty well. Best $700 I ever spent. The main unit was... No, 700 seems a little high. 400? 500? Maybe it was closer to 6. But it was... The unit itself, I think, was 350. And I bought 3 4TB drives. 2 of them are dedicated for NFS. 1 is dedicated for iSCSI. So it worked out pretty well. I've got no complaints. I recommend it to everybody that I meet that wants to know about storage. I always say QNAP. I'm sure there's other stuff that's out there, but that's what works for me. Can't get those good prices in Canada. You know, it's funny. It's trying to find stuff that for the price that I paid before COVID. It's hard. Hard to find anything with after COVID at a decent price. That's why I haven't bought a lot of hardware lately. That, and if you go on like eBay, everything is jacked up. Let's see where we're at here. Why does it keep doing this? I don't understand this. Well, I'm at 65%, so it's still taking its time, but I'm working the system a little bit, so it'll need another reboot after this. Oh, there we go. Cool. Alright, so there's going to be 2 different NICs, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to say configure 1 for network interface. We're going to choose VMX0. VMX0 is going to be our management interface. VMX1 will be our iSCSI port. It says, do you want to remove the current configuration? No. Configure DHCP? No. Configure IPv4? Yes. Interface name is going to be VMX0. Move this up just a touch, just so that it's a little easier to see what I'm typing. There we go. IPv4 address, in this case here will be 10.0.1. What IP address do I have? I'll give this guy 5/24. IPv6? No. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a VLAN interface, so 3. I'm going to say 1 for a new VLAN interface. We're going to put it on 2 for the parent interface. And select interface name will be VLAN 12. The VLAN tag will be 12. VLAN description will be iSCSI. And then we're going to come in here and say configure a 1 for a network interface. This will be on 3 for the VLAN. Delete interface? No. No, I do not want to remove the settings. No, I don't want to do DHCP. Yes, I want to configure IPv4. Interface VLAN 12, enter. And then we're going to say, in this case here, it's going to be 10.0.12. I'm put 5/24. Note for DHCP for IPv6. And there we go. So now that I've got that squared away, I can close this guy out. I can go back over here to my guy here. I can go ahead and I'm going to go open up this guy. I'm going to go download Chrome. Chrome is going to be essential as we move forward because I don't have a good experience with Edge with vCenter or with the storage appliance. So I'm just going to come over here and say google.com. And I happen to have a warning here. I'm going to have to install updates here soon. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, I want to deploy Chrome. Download Chrome. I know what some of you are thinking, oh my god, don't download Chrome. Well, it works really, really well. There's other things like Firefox and Pale Moon and some other stuff, but I happen to like Chrome. Although I've just gotten used to using it. I think that's the big thing. Do you have any customers leveraging vSAN functionality of VMware? A couple. Specifically with VMware Cloud Foundation or VCF, where you deploy VMware or vSphere, vSAN, and NSX all together. It makes yourself a little hybrid cloud. But they're rare. A lot of customers use straight IP-based storage, so it's iSCSI. Hook it up to a like 10 or 25 gig network connection, and boom, you're good to go. Alright, so Chrome is now installed. I'm going to go ahead and close out Edge. Yeah, let's close all tabs. I'm going to go ahead and pin this to the taskbar. And notice the vCenter server is successfully deployed. Yay! So I'm going to go ahead and click on, you can click here or you can click on close. Either way brings you to the same location. Now what's cool about this is we just closed out Edge. So now it's going to say Google Chrome, always use this app. So it makes it really, really easy to deploy. I'm going to click on Advanced and vCenter and then click on HTML5. This will take some time. So if you're in a rush, go take a coffee break. This will take some time. So this part, sorry, not this part, the login, after we log in, administrator at vsphere.local, and the password we set during the install, and then log in. This part will take some time. Now while we're waiting for that, I'm going to come over here and type in https:// and it's going to be 10.0.1.5, and this will be, you guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, our storage appliance. I'm going to come in here and type in root and the password. Alright, we're going to say get started and then bye-bye. Okay, cool. So we're in really good shape. So first thing I have to go do is come over here to services. And I'm going to click on iSCSI. I'm going to turn it on. Oh yeah, you're right, Mario, for sure. And we're going to say start automatically for iSCSI. And then on actions, we're going to go, I'm going to come over here to the wizard and use the wizard to deploy my setup here. So the name of this guy is going to be SAN. The device type, we can do device or file. Device is going to be iSCSI or block level storage. File is going to be NFS, and it's going to be delivering a file folder, no different than like Windows File Share. We're going to choose that. The device I'm going to deploy, I have two different drives. They're both the same size. I'm going to choose DA1. And we have a 512 byte TPC enabled. All that's good. I'm going to click on next. The portal, we're going to create a new portal. The IP address here, we're going to use is 10.0.12.5, which is going to be our iSCSI IP address for our target. Click on next, next, and then submit. That's it. That's it. I keep it super simple when I deploy iSCSI. I don't do authentication. I mean, I could, but I don't. So I'm going to come over here to the portals, make sure that looks good, and it does. Initiator groups, everything looks good. Targets, extents, and then associated targets. This is where you can add another target in here. So if you were to come over here to the wizard, and you can add another one here if you want to. You can click on add, and then target is going to be SAN. LUN ID is going to be 1. The extent ID is going to be SAN. Click on submit. Extent is already SAN. Oh, can I not do that one? I guess not. Let me run through the wizard again. We'll go SAN. Maybe it's SAN 2. Oh, there we go. Device will be DA2. Next. Portal will be the same portal we've been using. Next. Next. And then submit. That'll take a couple seconds. And if we come over here to associated targets, we have both LUNs here. I'm just going to come in here, click on the 3 dots next to SAN 2, edit it, and then change this to be LUN 1. So it's easier to identify later on when we get the storage to pull in. And that's it. That's it. All there is to set up the storage. That's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now, if we come back over here, voila, here's vCenter. So vCenter is now fully deployed. Now I get to go ahead and start bringing things into vCenter. First thing I have to do in here is create a data center. I'm going to right click here, say new data center. I'm going to call this DC1 and click on OK. And nothing's in here at the moment. It's a blank data center. So I can click on here, and there's a bunch of things that I can do. I can add clusters and things like that, which I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you guys how to add a host that doesn't already have a cluster associated to it. So I'm going to right click here, add host. The IP address of this guy will be DC1-host1. Click next. The username is going to be root and the password. Click next. We get the certificate that tells us we're good. You can verify this. I recommend that you would do it if you're doing this in production, but it's a home lab. I know it's good. We're going to do that. Assign license. Right now it's an eval copy. It's good for 60 days. Probably more than enough we're going to need. If you have Vmug Advantage membership with eval experience licensing, you can use those licenses here. We're not going to enable lockdown mode. Lockdown mode, if you're doing normal, means that you can still access the vCenter console through the local console, which means that you can go to the DCUI, where if you do strict, the DCUI is shut down. DCUI is this thing right here. This is your DCUI. This is your direct console user interface. So if I want to go in here and mess around with the server directly, this is how you would do it. But this is I don't need to do that right now. So, but in case you wanted to know, that's the DCUI. I'm going to click on next. VM location, I have none because this is a greenfield deployment, and then finish. This will take a few minutes for this guy to come online, but once he does, we'll be in good shape. While he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and right click on DC1 and go new cluster. And the cluster I'm going to call this is going to be compute cluster 1. And I'm going to turn DRS on. so that DRS can load balance, but DRS is going to need something called vMotion and shared storage, which we'll be setting up here within the next few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. So the cluster's now been created. Now that we're here, we have this cool little quick start guide here for it. So DRS is enabled, which is good. We're going to go ahead and add some hosts to my cluster. I'm going to add 2 hosts. I'm going to come up here and type in dc1-host2, root and the password, and then dc1-host3, root and the password. Click on next. I'm going to check the checkbox to say, yep, we're good on both thumbprints. Click on next, and then ready to complete. This makes it easier to onboard, but it automatically throws the both hosts into maintenance mode. So as soon as they come online, they'll be in maintenance mode, but they'll be in the compute cluster. Now what's cool about this is I can go and take this host right here and drop it into this host, or this cluster, just like so. And it basically says that put all the hosts, virtual machines in the cluster's resource pool. Resource pools currently present on the host will be deleted. Oh, is it? Anybody else having a problem hearing me? I'm not sure how I would fix that, but well, hopefully it's... I don't want to sound mean, but hopefully it's only your problem. Because you're the first one that's made any mention of it. But it's unfortunate. But alright, so we're going to go over here to hosts. And I'll take these 2 hosts out of maintenance mode. And then exit maintenance mode. Yep, that's fine. Alright, so that's cool. I'm going to go ahead and create another cluster. I'll call this compute cluster 3, or I'm sorry, compute cluster 2. Enable DRS on it. Click on OK. And then I'm going to move DC1 or host 1 and host 2 into oops. So yeah, this is the mistake I make. I can move one at a time. Well, actually, hold on one second. Cluster 2. I'll move 3 up to here. So, yep, that's fine. So, actually, let me rename this real quick because it didn't look right. Like, why does that look funny? There we go. So, in order to move this guy over here, is it going to let me do it? I don't think it's going to let me do it. So, if you want to move it, go ahead and refresh that real quick. Yeah, so if you right click here and say maintenance mode, enter maintenance mode, click on OK. There's no VMs running on it, so I'm not worried about it. Then take this guy right here and drag it down to this guy. Now he'll be able to move. Give that a second to do its thing. Why are you not moving? There it goes. It was just taking its sweet old time. Enter maintenance mode, exit maintenance mode. There we go. Now, that's that. So while I'm gonna add a 4th host, and while I'm working on adding in a distributed switch and getting all that stuff squared away, I'm also gonna go and show you guys how to do the storage and get that all squared away. So we're almost there. So I'm gonna go minimize this guy real quick. Close him out. I'm going to come back over here. Host 4 is sitting here just ready to get powered on. So I'm just going to go through the initial process of getting him squared away. Then I'll jump back over to vCenter. I'll show you guys how to create a distributed switch, add the host that we already have in vCenter to the distributed switch, get the networking set up for that, add in the storage. It's not terribly difficult to do, but it's we'll get this process knocked out pretty quick here. You'll find that the more you do this, the more comfortable you'll become with it, which is why I do it so much. But this is the data center virtualization side of VMware that if you're dealing with VMware on a regular basis, is the one you want to be proficient with, because all of the other verticals, whether it's NSX or desktop mobility, you're going to need to know vCenter anyway. So whether it's storage, whether it's templates and clones and snapshots and that type of stuff, or vSAN, you're going to need to know data center virtualization anyway. So it's important to know this stuff one way or the other. So, alright, so I'm going to go ahead and enter key F11 to install. It's going to go find the 40 gig drive. We're going to install it on that, set the password. And then F11 to install. I'm going to jump back over here to vCenter. And of course it decides to quit being a pain. Oh. There it goes. Alright. So I'm going to come over here to our networking tab. Click on DC1. I'm going to right click here and go distributed switch. You don't have to do it on that tab. It's where I do it. I'm going to go ahead and let me go ahead and get myself out of the way here. I'm going to call this guy here. I'm going to say DC1 VDS. Click next. The version that we're going to run is 6.6, which is the latest version. I have every one of my ES6i hosts has 4 uplinks. I'm only going to use 2 of those. The other 2 are going to be used for NSXV and NSXT. So 2 is all that I need. I'm going to leave 2 NICs unused. Network IO control, I can leave that on. I'm going to turn the default port group off. And now it's going to create the distributed switch. Now the distributed switch shows up. I have my uplinks. I'm going to click on the VDS itself. Up here I'm going to click on Actions and New DPG. I'm going to call this first one Management. Click Next. No VLAN ID means I'm going to be using VLAN 1. Click Next and Finish. I'm going to create another one, New DPG. I'm going to call this one here SAN. Click Next. Now the static binding, meaning that you have ephemeral as well, which means you're going to no binding at all. Static binding means we're just, well, actually I don't remember what static binding means off the top of my head. But elastic port allocation, it's going to grow, the switch ports will grow as VMs are added to it. So it's going to grow elastically a number of groups of 8. Here I'm going to use VLAN 12 because this is going to be SAN traffic. And then click on Next and then Finish. And then I'm going to go create another one. This will be for vMotion, sorry. vMotion. I'm going to use VLAN 13 for this. And right now that is all I need. I will need other ones in the future. I'll have to use an NSXT and NSXV uplinks, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. So I've got my 3 NICs, my 3 port groups associated. If I click over here on Configure and I come to the topology, you're going to see how it's all laid out. Now the one thing that we have to pay attention to is going to be the SAN. Now the reason why I bring the SAN up is because when you're dealing with storage, you can't have 2 NICs associated to a VM kernel adapter. When we go to do iSCSI storage, you can only have 1 NIC mapped to 1 port group. So when I mean one uplink mapped to 1 port group when it comes to storage. You can have multiple storage connections and then multiple VM kernel adapters to do multipathing, which is an option. But if you click on SAN, it shows that we're using both uplinks. So I'm going to come over here to Actions and then Settings and Edit Settings. I'm sorry, not that one. Sorry, I need to go to the port group level, not the distributed switch. Actions, Edit Settings, and then Teaming and Failover. I'm going to bump uplink 2 down to be unused. Click on OK, and that's the only one you have to mess with. All the other ones, you're good to go. Now go back up to the VDS. I'm going to go to Actions, Add Manage Hosts, Add Hosts. Click on Next. We're going to add hosts. I'm going to grab all 3 of them. Click on OK. And then VMNIC 0 is attached to vSwitch 0 right now. I'm going to assign the uplink 1, and I'm going to apply this uplink assignment to the rest of the hosts. This is what template mode was in 6.0 and 6.5. VMNIC 1, assign uplink. Uplink 2, map it to the other ones as well. We're good to go. The VM kernel adapters, I'm going to say VM kernel 0, associate that to management, and templatize that to the other hosts. And then I'm going to click on Next. There's no VMs deployed currently, so we're in good shape. And we're good to go. So now, what should end up happening is we should get some updates with our networking. And we are. So we have DC1, or host 1, host 2 are coming over. Host 3 seems to be hanging for the moment. Not sure why host 3 is hanging. Usually it's lickety split. Okay, an error occurred. Why did an error occur for host 3? Configure physical adapters. That's weird. Huh. Okay. Cancel. Let me come over here to this guy. So, let's see here. Oh, you guys can't even see the what I'm seeing. Let me go ahead and get out of the way. Close this guy out. Alright, so let me manage physical adapters. Let me add an adapter. Oh, how did that happen? VMNIC 0 is here. Manage physical adapters. Oh, all of them are tied to this guy. Let me go manage physical adapters. Let me go ahead and bump this up to be active adapter. And click on OK. And then we're going to come over here. We're going to unused adapters. We're going to add. Okay, those are free. So I should be able to come over here to these guys. Add. Uplink 1 to that guy. And VMNIC 2. We can adjust these later, the specific ones that we want to have there. So there we go. So then we can come over. So now we have our 2 uplinks attached to our VDS, and then 1 uplink attached to our VSS. What I need to do is come up here and say migrate networking. We have our distributed switches squared away here, so I'm going to come over here, adjust this, migrate this over to the management port group. Finish that. That should migrate over. And it did, like it's supposed to. This is what should have happened the first time. But, so now I get to come over here to manage physical adapters. I get to come over here, close that one out. Yep, that's fine. And then I'll come up over here to manage physical adapters. And then what I will do is I will remove this one, but add in 0. And click on OK. There we go. So now 2 and 3 will be opened up for doing other NSX stuff that we're going to do later on. So now we have that. If we go back over here to the networking tab and we expand this out, we can see that all of them are squared away the way that they need to be. So we're happy campers now. So next thing I'm going to do is come over here to SAN, and I'm going to click on Actions and say Add VM kernel adapters. So I'm going to attach hosts. I'm going to grab all 3. Click on OK. Click Next. None of this is going to be for any services. Click next. The IPv4 settings here will be 10.0.12. None of them have an IP address yet, so 11/24. And then we're going to use 10.12 and 10.13/24 mask for both of them, because this is going to be storage traffic. Click next and then finish. Now that's been added. We'll be able to do the exact same thing with vMotion. Click on Actions, add VM kernel adapters, attached hosts. Next, this time it's going to be vMotion. We're going to check so we can move VMs back and forth. And in this case here, we're going to do a 10.0.13.11/24 mask. And then 13.12 and 13.13. And next, and then finish. So now we've enabled vMotion on there. Now we're going to go back over to our hosts. And then on host 1, because we have our setup the way that we do, we're only mapped to one NIC. We look at the VM kernel adapter, we have our SAN connection there, and it's using VLAN 12. Let's see, is it going to show me? Yep, VLAN 12 right there. So now I need to come up here to storage adapters. There's no way to mass deploy this. I wish there was. This would make it so much easier. We're going to say add software adapter, iSCSI. Click on OK. That'll get added. Let's see here. Where are we at with that? Okay, cool. That's added now. I'm going to come down here to host 2. Do the same thing. Add software adapter, iSCSI. Click on OK. That takes a couple seconds to trigger. Now it's there. And then host 3, same thing. Storage adapter, add software adapter. Alright, now that we have that, I'm going to reverse my flow. And I'm going to go click on here. And I just need to do a network port binding. I'm going to add the port binding that I'm going to use is going to be on SAN. Click on OK. Dynamic discovery. I need to add a server. So in this case here, I'm going to type in 10.0.12.5. Click on OK. And then I need to rescan the storage. So I need to send basically a hello out, ask for the storage to come in. And if I've done my job correctly, we should see storage show up here once it's done scanning. Hopefully. And it did not, which is awesome. Not sure why that is being difficult. Let me try it on this one. Storage adapters. Grab that guy. And we're going to go ahead and rescan the storage. Okay, that one showed up. Maybe that was the problem. I just wasn't giving it enough time. Storage devices. Huh. Okay. Weird. I'll have to come back to that one and see why it's not working. That one's good. This one I need to go ahead and edit. Network port binding. Add. Click on OK. Dynamic discovery for my storage. And same thing here. Click on OK. And then dynamic rescan storage. Alright, host 2 shows up as well. Awesome. So, host 3, let me go check the host level config to see if there's a problem there. Let me go ahead and minimize this guy. And let's go to host 3. Edit. Oh, how did I miss that? Oh, wow. I couldn't have done that better if I tried. That explains why it's not working. Make sure I didn't screw up host 4. Host 4, I bet you I did too. Edit. Going too fast, that's the problem. We'll go ahead and reboot that guy. Let's try that one more time. Alright. Behave. Alright, so in host 3 we're going to rescan the storage again. Now that we're on the right subnet, hopefully it'll work. There it goes. That explains why it wasn't working. Whew! Talk about trying to like have a freak out moment. Things like that do happen. Alright, so now we have that good to go. I'm going to go jump back over here to this guy. We're going to wait for him to pull up because we're kind of about a wait, hurry up and wait type of deal. And that explains why the when I was running into host 3 problems, that explains why host 3 wasn't working because of that connection. Because I didn't have the network adapters at the host level set up correctly. So that'll teach me to go too quickly. So once this guy comes online and he's good to go, we'll quickly configure him. And once he's configured, we'll be able to add him to vCenter. And then once he's added to vCenter, we'll be able to do all the additional bits that we did for host 1, 2, and 3. And at that point in time, we're at that stage now where we can transition into NSX, where we can start deploying NSXT, NSXV, that type of stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to do all that tonight. It is getting kind of late and whatnot. So I'm probably going to, depending on tomorrow, I can do another live stream where we can pick up where we left off. So I'm going to go full screen real quick just so I can get my password typed in. There we go. So we're in really good shape at this point. And once we're there, okay, so we configure management network, IPv4 10.0.1.14/24 and 10.0.1.1. Getting this configuration 10.0.1.254, and then it's going to be dc1-host4.nsx.local. Pardon me. Alright, now that's all squared away, I need to go back over to my domain controller and I need to add an entry for this because I did not do that before. You need to add an A record in. So tools, DNS, and say dc1-host4 be 10.0.1.14. Awesome. Alright, so that's all good. I'm also going to add in here SAN, which is going to be 10.0.1.5. Just so that I can pull it up via DNS and not have to go by IP. Let me go back over here to this guy. And then I'm going to go and underneath compute cluster 2, I'm going to add a host. This type will be dc1-host4. Root and the password. Accept the thumbprint. Click OK. Click next and finish. After this, we will then go do the. He'll get added to the host. He'll be in maintenance mode though when he gets there. Give that a minute to do its thing. Go ahead and refresh. Where'd he go? Hosts. Oh, there it is. So go ahead and exit maintenance mode. There it is. Alright, so now we get to go back over here to our VDS. We're going to go ahead and configure, add, manage hosts, add a host, new host, which will be host 4. Click OK. Let me go ahead and get out of the way real quick so that it's not like smack dab in the way. Click next. VMNIC 0 sign up link is going to be uplink 1. Uplink VMNIC 1, uplink 2. We're going to put this on the management port group. And we're going to give that a couple minutes to add its adapters. We should get 3. There we go. That's better. So now I'm going to go over here to this guy on host 4. I'm going to come down to the VM kernel adapters. I'm going to add networking. I'm going to add VM network adapter. Next, select an existing network to add this to. I'm going to say SAN. Click on OK. Next. And then IPv settings are going to be 10.0.12.14/24. Click on next and then finish. I'm going to add one more for vMotion, VM kernel adapter. And then select network is going to be vMotion. Click OK. Next. This will be vMotion. Next. And then you have 10.0.13.14/24. Click next and then finish. And then lastly, we need to go up to our storage adapters, add a storage adapter, grab the iSCSI adapter, and then we're going to go, once it adds it, I'm going to go ahead and network port binding, add, grab the SAN adapter, click OK. Dynamic discovery, add, grab our IP address of our SAN, and then devices, we're going to go ahead and rescan. We should get 250 gig drives should show up, which they do. And if we go to storage devices, we are good to go. So I am going to come over here to storage, expand this guy out. I am going to come over here to actions and say, sorry, DC, actions, storage, new data store, VMFS. We're going to call this SAN. We're going to select host 4. Grab this guy right here. Click on next. We're going to use VMFS 5. Click next. We're going to use the entire drive. Next, and then finish. Boom, there we go. That's one drive. We're going to actions, new data store. Actually, we can see if it'll let me extend it. Actions. I don't think it's going to let me increase data store capacity. Yep, we can do this one right here. We can grab the other 250 gig drive. Next. We can use that, and so we're going to have a total of 500 gigs over across 2 drives. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add another. I'll add another storage, another data store. I'll add. Actually, let me go ahead and rename this one here. I'm going to rename this to be SAN 1. And then I'll do actions. Actually, a DC wide actions, new data store, VMFS, SAN 2. We'll grab host 2, this guy, click next, VMFS 5, grab the whole drive, finish. So if you wanted to, you could take, if you had 2 different LUNs and you wanted to map that to one storage array, you could. You could have 2 LUNs and have one data store striped across both of them. And you could do that, where you're extending your data store across 2 different extents. That does work, and it was 2 different LUNs. It does work. So I chose not to do that. but if you wanted to, you could. And now they're both in use, 250 gigs each, and I could scale this out. So next time, like if I'm going to go deploy something, I could deploy something and then it'll give me the option of which storage array do you want to map to. Technically, they're all back to the same storage processor, but it gets the job done. But we are 3.5 hours in. We've got everything where we need it to be at this point in time. The only thing I haven't done is deployed a virtual machine. But I've done everything up to this point that I'm actually a little behind schedule. I wanted to deploy NSX Vmanager, NSX Team Manager, and start getting NSX bits installed. That's okay though. This is a good stopping point right now because then I can go ahead and show you guys, and probably later in the week, if not next week, how to deploy some of the stuff and go from there. So 3.5 hours in, I feel like we got a lot accomplished. We completely built an entire software-defined data center with 4 hosts, 2 clusters, and 1 vCenter. I think we accomplished quite a bit. And we have iSCSI deployed. I can start deploying VMs at this point in time and do vMotion and all that good stuff. So I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me. This video will be available probably in a few hours from now once it's done rendering. You guys can feel free to watch it as much as you'd like. Share it wherever you'd like. Hopefully you all have subscribed at this point. Hopefully. I'm going to check. Let's see how many more new subscribers I have. One new subscriber. That's okay though. One is better than none. So I always look at the upside of everything. You guys were awesome. It was a lot of good commentary. I think the chat should show up as once the video is done. I do have the chat replays enabled. Thanks so much for stopping by, and hopefully I will have something for you guys later in the week where we'll play around with this a little bit more and go from there. You guys have a good rest of your day, and be safe out there. You guys take it easy.